Okay, so from a marketing perspective, for those of you who are new to marketing or new to sales, I want to just give you a basic funnel, a marketing funnel. It'll set you up for when you come out of the program. Going into the program, you may not know your unit economic numbers, but coming out of the program, you definitely want to know your unit economic numbers and conversion numbers. So I'm going to give you some basics on it and walk you through the difference between a B2B funnel versus a business to consumer funnel. Or for the companies doing C2C, you'll use the B2C components as well. So finding the right customers is really about the messaging and value proposition we talked about yesterday, and then getting out in front of the customers and testing that to see if it resonates with them. Do they understand it? Is it too abstract? Is it personal? Is there a way for me to have a call to action? Does it make sense from that perspective? So what you're really trying to get to there, if you're new to marketing, is corporate marketing is an example of bad corporate marketing is where the company makes themselves the center of the story. You're really making the customer the center of your story. If you're a marketplace, you have two customers. You have the sellers, the listers, and the buyers, or the folks who are providing the service, right? So you need to have two distinct customer messages. So give you an example, when we went through our messaging for Startup Weekend, we had 4 basic customers. But when I got there, our messaging was really kind of muddied and together because we had tried to get all 4 messages into one. So think of events for Startup Weekend. We have this weekend event that you're doing, you're an attendee. But the other folks who are involved with that event is the organizing team in the market who is putting on the event, the facilitator who's running the event, and then the sponsors who want to help pay for the event. So we have 4 distinct customers. So the first one is the ticket buyer. So that person is attending to really, it's like a pickup basketball game for startups, right? I'm going to meet potentially a co-founder. I'm going to develop new skills. So that was one of our customers. The second customer was the organizing team. So one of the things that we did with the organizing team for Startup Weekend at the time was you'd come in and fill out a form, and then we told you we'd get back to you in 4 to 6 weeks because the demand was so crazy high that we basically disappointed that customer from the very start. Right? We did it from our perspective in that we didn't have time to get back to them, but we were setting them up to be disappointed. So we had to change that marketing message to crisp on the marketing message of who our customer was. For the facilitator, the person who would run the event, we had to encourage them to go get trained so they could go travel and run the events. And then for our corporate sponsors, we had to engage them in the mission to help them be corporate sponsors for what we wanted to have them pay for. So the thing that I'm after for you all is to think about who your customer is, make your customer the center of your story, and make sure that the language you use on your website talks about them, not about you. So if you're a marketplace, you have two customers to deal with. But if you're a product or a subscription, you have a primary customer to deal with. And the question is that language resonate with them? So because we usually start writing it from our perspective first, I just want you to flip the model right from their perspective. So your strategy in almost all cases is going to be outbound marketing first rather than inbound marketing. Most of you don't have enough inbound marketing from search engine optimization perspective. Or if you're building a product no one's ever seen before, then people don't know they're looking for your product. So think of it as outbound marketing first, and that may include outbound sales. All right. So basics on the marketing funnel. I'm going to walk you through the language first, and then walk you through the funnel example. So all right. So your marketing terms, your basic marketing terms, and Hussein talked about them too. He talked about CAC, which is your customer acquisition cost. How much does it cost me to acquire a customer? And if you're doing a marketplace, you have how much does it cost me to acquire a buyer? How much does it cost me to acquire a seller? My LTV, my lifetime value, is calculated originally at 12 months. So how many transactions do I think they will do over that first 12-month period? And it gives me an estimate in their lifetime value. Average revenue per user, or ARPU, can also be average contract value. if you're doing annual contracts or ACV. Churn is the amount of people who leave us. So if I'm doing a marketplace, if they come in and do a single transaction, their lifetime value is going to drop. If they do 4 transactions a year, if it's somebody who's posting a service and they quit posting, that's the equivalent of churn, right? So churn is how many people fall off the system. Time to close is the next big thing. From the time somebody hits my site to the time they register to the time they become a customer, how long is that? Is it 90 days? Is it 30 days? Is it 13 days? So, and initially you're going to have a hypothesis on how long that time will be. Customer engagement can be things like frequency or time on site. So if they're scrolling through your site, reading reviews or looking at applications, or if they're using your app, how much time do they spend on the app, and how frequently do they use the app on a monthly basis? And so time on site, customer engagement can be any number of those things. So, but those are going to be some of your key metrics for marketing. So this is a basic funnel, and I'm going to break it down for you into its component parts. You'll see time to close there is on the left, funnel is in the center, and the channels are above. So let me walk you through some of the basics here. If you're a marketer, I apologize for the simplicity. If you're not a marketer, I'm going to blow through this pretty fast, so you can come back and review this more later. So marketing channels are the activities you use to get people to your site, to the App Store, to download your app, to come visit your physical location, whatever those things are. So you'll see I listed up there some examples. So paid search, Google AdWords. Organic search would be search engine optimization. Word of mouth. Sales calls, which usually in the marketing is going out and buying lists of business customers, because it's kind of hard to buy a list of individuals. So public relations or PR. Affiliate marketing is another example. Email marketing is building your email list and doing that campaign. Do you do it weekly? Do you do it monthly? And social media is another example of something you can use. You'll notice my far right side there is miracles. That's when you don't have a plan and it doesn't work, by the way. So sometimes that's hey, we just built a better product and people will find us. They never find you. Like, you need to figure out how you're going to do the marketing. So those are some examples of marketing channels. Trade shows might be another one, events. And again, there's no right or wrong, good or bad here. It's just a question of where will you spend $1,000 a month during the program, with what expectation for traffic, and the traffic then is at the top of the website. From the top of the website, you're going to look for marketing qualified leads. I'm going to give you B2B first and then B2C. A marketing qualified lead is somebody who basically has given me some form information. So I'm a seller on your marketplace. You want to know some basic information about me: email, name, maybe phone number, maybe number of listings per month, right? The more information you ask for in a marketing qualified lead, the fewer people will fill it out. But if you don't ask any questions, you may have to qualify them more as you go. So marketing qualified lead is, at its basic, is an email address, right? Email address, name, maybe phone number. The next one is based on profile. You'll start asking questions like, how many employees do you have? Or how much do you spend on this annual thing? Or how much is your family income, right? All of those qualifiers will take down the number of marketing qualified leads you get. SQLs or sales qualified leads are next. I'm basically handing off this marketing qualified lead to somebody who's going to pick up the phone and call them. And during that call, I'm going to qualify them based on their willingness to pay. Do they have budget to spend? What's their urgency and need, right? So it's basically, it's a basic qualifying call. So who are you and are you qualified to buy? The call to action there can be a demo. It can be a trial. It can be any number of things that are, give away a white paper. But the idea here is that I'm going to qualify that customer and I'm going to send them more information, or I'm going to schedule them for a demo or a trial. How many calls does it take me to close that call? So time to close is my next. Actually, before I go to time to close, if you're B2B, if you're B2C or you're C2C, this process is compressed into a single. Your MQL, SQL becomes really about the transaction. So, which means that can somebody come in, put in their credit card, buy it from you now, right? Is the price point reasonable enough versus the risk? So, but you don't have multiple steps in your funnel process. It's really awareness at the top of the funnel, whatever marketing activities drive to that site. And then the call to action is to buy the product. So it could be you have a trial product that's free in the case of, I'm thinking of the sign language company. I have a product I can buy. I don't have to subscribe. And that gives me an on-ramp product where I can actually engage with you as your product and then convert to subscriber next. But so B2C or C2C has to be a clear enough value proposition I can take action without somebody calling me. If somebody has to call me, you're going to have this MQL, SQL process. Okay. All right. Time to close is the next one. From lead attribution, so you're going to use Google Tag Manager, and as an example, and Google Analytics is going to track traffic at the top of the site. Tag Manager that will then allow you to track that anonymous cookie user all the way through the time you collect their form information through the time they close. So the big question here is the early days, is that 94 days or 34 days, right? So how do you know? And the answer is it's hard because it's kind of expensive from a tools perspective. But Google Tag Manager will be your fastest tool to do it. You can have somebody on Fiverr set up Google Tag Manager for you for $50 or $100. The goal here is over time, I want to start tracking it. So think beginning of the cohort program with Flat6 to the end, you should be able to go from, like, when we first started tracking it, it was 120 days. Now it's 64 days. Great. So keep tracking it, right? Because you want to get 64 days down. So that's your time to close. Tracking in the simplest form really is just this table. How much money did I spend in the first month of the cohort? How many leads? What was our traffic at the top of the site? How many leads got generated? Of those MQLs, how many became SQLs? Of the SQLs, how many closed and became customers? Again, the early discipline here is just a matter of like building muscle to be able to do this so that you can get good at it later. So the basics of it, this is as simple as the chart can get. You don't have to use HubSpot or Salesforce or anything at this point. You can do it very simply. But know that coming out of the program and going into demo day, in order to get a big check from investors, if you have unit economic data, you win. If you don't have unit economic data, it's a huge challenge because they're going to wait for you to actually get that unit economic data. All right. So next thing is sales. How are you going to capture value? So sales process here is pretty straightforward. How will the customer buy? So web direct is something they can go to the site, take action directly on the site themselves. If your price point is low enough and your product is simple enough, they can actually place an order. Direct. So direct sales is where somebody either inbound or outbound actually has to call and talk to the customer. If you're doing a new product or a product that requires some education, so in the guys who are doing programs for schools, somebody has to call the school district and say, hey, do you want to buy our product? Unless it's so easy to capture on the web that they can sign up themselves and do the trial. And then the question at the end of the trial, somebody has to call them and say, do you want to convert from the trial from free to the paid version, right? So it depends on your product, right? But most of you should assume that you're going to have to do direct sales unless you can do marketing-based sales, which are web direct. So the price point has to be low. And I'll give you a chart that lets you search out which one is best for you. Indirect and channel sales is next. So the question there is, well, can somebody else fulfill the demand that you create? So in the case of, again, the gamification site for education, you're working with channel partners in the Microsoft Education Software Program. But you have to create the demand first. They're good at fulfilling the demand, but they're not good at creating demand. So affiliate models come in here as well. If you're doing an affiliate model as a sales channel, they can do that, but it has to be a simple enough message for them to repeat. So you really have to nail your message, because if it's a complex message, affiliates can't sell it and indirect channels can't sell it. And the last example is retail. And honestly, I don't know much about retail. So if you're doing retail, I'm not sure how you got in here. So, but it's possible. Retail may be a channel for you, but just know that it's not a core one. Interestingly enough, this slide hasn't changed in like 7 years. So if you have a different way of selling, let me know. But for the most part, these are your choices. So here's how you can choose which one's right for you. If you have a known product in a known market, you can do web direct as long as your price point is low enough. Now, I can't imagine anybody wanting to go on a cruise yet, but if you were to buy, I can buy an airline ticket to come to Bahrain and see you. But if there's a $10,000 cruise, I kind of want to talk to somebody and make sure it's like a legit thing. So again, it's price point dependent. So there's things I can buy that are web direct that are still expensive, but I actually want to talk to somebody. So if you have an unknown market, like no one's ever done what you're doing before, your only choice is going to be direct sales. Somebody has to call and actually talk to somebody. If you have a high price point, you're also going to do direct. And then if you have known search words, you can do all three. So people are currently searching for what you're selling today. You can do web direct, you can do direct, or you can do indirect. If you are doing a product that no one's ever heard of before, you're going to do direct. So you have to do an educational sales cycle to actually go do that. And as I said yesterday, the starting salesperson is you. So for this particular exercise, the question is, pick your model. Are you going to do web direct? Are you going to do direct? Or are you going to go to indirect? Because that changes your sales model and your budget. So go ahead and pick one now.
I wish we had a choice, Dave, but in our case, we have to be sales team.
In your case, what?
We need to be sales, direct sales. We need to go and meet jewelers and manufacturers. We
Yep.
don't have an option of creating a pull through the internet.
Yeah, it's pretty standard when you're doing something that's new, like you guys are doing, and somebody actually has to pick up the phone and call somebody, right? And like I said, the early days, it's going to be you as the founder. But the push I want to push you towards is where startups become zombie startups is where they never scale past the founding team in the sales organization, right? So you have to figure out, how do we sell it? But it also impacts your selling price. So for example, in the US market, if your transaction value is less than, let me put him on mute.
I'm sorry, Dave, I can't hear you clearly. I think others had their unmuted.
Yep. Well, I can take care of that. So if your average transaction value is less than $2,500 USD, in the US market at least, you can't scale a sales organization professionally. Like you can hire some interns and test it, but can you grow a sales team? In the US, it seems to be about $2,500. So I don't know if that's the same thing as true there, but at least you can use it as a benchmark of what can I get my lifetime value to be in order to scale a sales organization, because you have to pay salaries and commissions, right, to scale a sales org. So it's going to require a price point. All right, so that answers your sales question. Now, marketing is incredibly creative. You can do all kinds of things. Sales, less creative, 4 choices. You've picked yours. I want to mention business development really quick. Business development is partner marketing or partner selling. So it's not sales. So if you have somebody who has a quota and a commission, that's sales. If you have somebody who's in charge of how do we drive partner sales, that's business development. It's early for business development discussions, but I want to bring it up here just because I want you to understand that usually your upmarket business development partners are going to be your likely buyer of your company. So you don't have to keep your secret sauce secret, your trade secrets. But if you have a potential to work with an upmarket buyer, most of the time it was like the question that someone asked Hussein before the break. What if I have a big competitor? Most big companies, all of the innovative people have left. Now, they have 2 things you don't have. They have customers and they have revenue. But you have something they don't have, which is you have innovators and they don't. Right? So know that yes, you want to keep the secret sauce secret, but at the same time, if you're doing something really innovative, they're likely going to be your buyer. So your strategic relationships, who has a list of customers you'd like to get to, is super important. And then how do you get to that partnership is really, how do you create a win-win? It's not a question of, hey, will you sell my product? The answer is no. if the answer is, hey, how can we partner together to lower your transaction cost or speed your sales process? The answer is yes. So one of the companies I sold, one of the things we discovered was all of the companies that used our product, it shortened their sales cycle by 50%. So they bought us because it shortened their sales cycle by 50%. They could give our product away for free and drive more customers to their product, which is what they were after. So understand it from the dynamics of the business development relationship. So this is another task for you, CEO and founder, right? Which is, from a strategy perspective, identify who those people are, know who they are in the market. They may be the international big company. They may be folks in your market who are big strategic relationships. You're going to own those relationships. You're probably going to own them for a long time. And again, at some point, just my meta point is, don't be worried about, if you're at a trade show and you get a chance to meet them, right? And I just never give them information that's not already on the website, right? We may talk about product roadmap, we may talk about their plans, but what I'm really trying to push for is I just want to get a chance to get to know them. Okay. All right. So wrong direction. So your go-to-market plan. So you pick your revenue model, you've got some ideas on what you're going to do from a marketing channels perspective. You just picked your sales model and your business development plan. So, and we talked about pricing before the break. So now you have these components that you can start to put into your actual go-to-market plan. So before the program starts, I would look at what are your priorities that you need to test? Like, what pricing things do you want to go test before the program starts? And then does your product have to be done before you test it? So one of the things I would tell you I've done before that has served me well is I've actually tested my marketing messaging and my hypothesis and marketing spend before I had a product actually built. So I would rather spend $1,000 buying Facebook or Instagram ads or LinkedIn ads, send people to a A/B test landing page with the option to buy, and test if they're willing to actually take action. So I'm going to put my value proposition in the ad. I'm going to give them a landing page to take action. And when they get to the checkout page, I'm going to tell them that we've currently have all the beta customers we can have. Please give me their information for our next release of the beta product users. Right? Am I going to disappoint some people? Yeah, but it's an MVP. I'm going to disappoint people anyway. Right? So what I'm really after is, I have this hypothesis. Before I spend another $10,000 building it, I'd rather spend $1,000 testing it. So I've actually gone and done that from a straight marketing advertising spend perspective. And what I'm after there is that, do people actually care about what I'm doing? So just be willing to be creative, right? And I always found it entertaining. People are like, you're not being honest. I'm like, nope, I'm being totally honest. I'm not taking their credit card information. I'm just going to get them to the checkout page and say, our beta signups are full, right? The fact is, I don't have a product built yet, but I wanted to test it and see if the market would actually accept it. So those are things you can do before the program actually starts. Now, here's what I want you to work on next, right? Which is your 30, 60, 90-day plan. So in your next 30 days, what are the marketing tests that you want to run? And you're basically going to build this as a chart in 30, 60, 90s. So the marketing test I want to test in my first 30 days might be, I'm going to test these value propositions. I'm going to test these price points. Great, right? What channels do I want to test? Do I want to run LinkedIn ads? Do I want to run Facebook ads or Instagram ads? Do I want to put flyers under people's windshield wipers? Like, whatever it is you want to test, I just want you to write out what your marketing channel will be at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days that you want to test. From a sales perspective, what's your initial sales script need to be? Right? So you're going to need pricing information. You're going to need call to action. You're going to need, is it a demo? Is it a white paper? Is it a proof of concept? So what's your sales script going to be at 30 days? So, and then from a pricing standpoint, what's my high end I'd like to test, and what's my low end I'm willing to test? So I want you to take a few minutes right now and start to write out the 30-day version of that. know that you need to come back and do the 60 and 90-day version of it as well. If you come into the program and you have this written out, and then you have a check that you can start to do 1,000. I'm not saying 1,000 is the right number, by the way, but you have money you can spend, test your advertising. I want you to be able to hit the ground running day one of the program and not be like, oh, we're 45 days into the program before we even start doing these tests, right? So your goal right now is to take a few minutes and just write down your first 30-day objective, and then we'll talk through them. Questions?
Dave, I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you do the A/B test, they will reach the checkout, the car checkout, and if you don't have a product, you tell them you don't have a product, or how do you do it?
What I'll usually do, depending on what the product category is I'll send them a note that says, hey, we're not currently selling the product. We already have all of the registered beta users we're taking. If you'd like to get on our list for more information as soon as we have our next wave of customers, give me your email information now from a sign up. So what I'm gathering from that Google form or similar is what was the landing page and what did I tell them from the offer perspective, their name, their email, maybe their phone number.
Clear. Thank you. Dave, we had something very interesting in Bahrain through the Chamber of Commerce.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, people abused it and they took it off from the internet. So in my case, if I wanted to see a list of all the jewelers in Bahrain, I would just search jewelers, and it would give me all the details and all the commercial registrations. Now it's gone.
So is it something you can find lists online and then pull that data over?
Well, I have my connections inside the Commerce Chamber of Commerce, so they can give it to me.
Yeah, that's a good one. One of the things I've done a lot with Fiverr is I'll come across the list and I'll actually just pay somebody $20 to actually pull that list into a spreadsheet for me.
Yeah, why not?
Right, because it's not a great use of my time. But and then the funny ones are the guys who have built screen scraping tools, right? Where they run a software program against the list and all of a sudden it's done in 5 minutes and they're like, great tool. I'm like, I'd actually like to buy that tool and take it to market, right? Versus just have somebody do the work. But I tend to think about those things. So on the sales activity side, like when we're doing an M&A activity, or we're helping to sell a company, there may be a list that I'm like, I need to get the list of all the engineering managers in Seattle for these top 100 companies. So I'll go out to Fiverr and hire somebody to do a job like that, give them hey, find me the list of the most senior title you can find in Seattle in the subcategory engineering for this list of companies, and I'll point them to a list on the web. So that's an example of somebody where I probably paid $200 to have somebody, pull over the list, find a contact, give me an email address for everybody in Seattle for a couple $100.
I'll tell you what I do more than that. I have a subscription to rocketreach.co.
Mm-hmm.
And through that website, you can find emails and phone numbers. So yes. I would give it to the Fiverr freelancers and give them my credentials, the user ID and the password, and let them run with it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, Seamless AI in this market does the same thing. So they've done and the CEO of that company, that company's crushing it. I think they'll do 100 million in revenue this year. So
what's the name? What's the name of the company?
Seamless.ai.
Okay, Seamless.ai.
So same sort of lead generation. My point for everybody is there's a bunch of tools out there that you don't need to go do this manually.
Yeah, and Dave, did you try the LinkedIn Sales Navigator?
I've tried it a little bit before in the past. It hasn't been super effective for me. Okay. It depends on the product.
Okay.
So there is one thing, LinkedIn, the ads are pretty effective because it allows you to say, hey, I want to find the person with this title with companies above like 5,000 employees, which allows you to be very segmented on the customers you want to sell to. Just know that they're going to see that ad multiple times,
Yeah.
right? Which is good, right? All right. Anybody have their first 30 days of what marketing channels they think they're going to spend on?
Dave, in my case, I think we will just hit the sales test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna acquire the list, build a sales script.
There's no point of putting marketing test because we only have a few families controlling most of the pearl industry in each country of the Gulf.
Got it. So what you'll be testing then is your marketing positioning, the one pager that basically sells your value proposition. So if I was your salesperson, I'd have to get on the phone and say, this is what we do. Let me send you this information. Can I schedule a demo? Is that what you think your sales process is going to be?
Yeah, and Dave, I think one of our best selling points is to tell them instead of taking 5 to 10 years to make a necklace, we'll cut it down to 3 months.
Right.
Yeah, so if you sell a necklace worth $1 million and north of that, and if you increase the frequency of the sales, you make them a lot of money. Because now what's happening in the industry is that each pearl merchant, they don't reveal their inventory. So if we can find a way where they can share that through our product. So I come to you, Dave, and I say, I'm looking for this 4 mm white pearl. Do you have that? And you can sell it to me, and then I can add it to the thread.
So I would make sure you're always testing your messaging because you may find that that is the best message, but you always want to be A/B testing. And what I mean by that is even in your marketing spend, if in your case, you're not doing much marketing, but for most of you, you will be doing some marketing activities, whether as a trade show or advertising. You always want to make sure you're splitting up your marketing spend and not doing 100% on one channel or doing 100% of one message, because you're looking to see how the message resonates differently with different customers. And you may alternate once you start seeing which one becomes the most resonant message, that'll become your A. But you always want to be testing the messaging so that you're not coming back after you did 100 sales calls. It would be like, oh, we did 10 sales calls. We kind of figured out that like this is the message, but we're always going to be testing new features, right? So know that that's going to be part of your process. Again, I think Hussein said it great. He's like, I butted heads with people early because I had opinions, and then I learned that like I'm gonna go test stuff. So I'm a huge fan of that. Okay, somebody else. What's your first 30 days marketing activity when you get in the program?
30 days for me.
Mm-hmm.
The 30 days marketing plan would be for us for the app would be social media strategies, social media pop-up, videography and photography sessions. What else? Doing a lot of talk in school to explain about schools, universities, and stuff. As well, campaign and development and implementation.
That sounds like a quarter's worth of activities versus 30 days worth of activities, just so you know. So one of the things that this is a founder thing, not a you thing. So one of the things for us as founders is we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 10. Right.
Okay,
so in our case, we overestimate what we can do in 30. So like, so what I want you to do is get very tactical with what your first 30 days of like, if I was to spend $1,000 in the first 30 days, what channels would I spend it on? Right.
So we definitely social media and social pop-up.
Great.
Social pop-up.
So then the question is, write it out as a plan, knowing what your advertising cost will be, how many ads and what are the ads that you will use, right? Because that's a great first 30 days, because then you're going to learn from that experience. But one thing I would say for everybody is if you're going to spend $1,000, my question is how long do you expect to have a return on that investment? Is it going to take you 45 days to get return on advertising spend or return on marketing spend? Or is it going to take you 90 days? And you're going to be wrong, right? But I don't want you to just say, oh, we're just going to go test it without having a thesis. I want you to have a thesis first, right? So if I spend 500 in Instagram and 500 on LinkedIn, which one do I expect to perform better and why? I just want you to think about it before you spend it, because otherwise Google AdWords spend is always good for Google. It's occasionally good for you, right? So you need to know what you're
What about
planning to
YouTube
get
ads?
from a return.
What
Okay.
about YouTube pop-up ads?
Same thing. Just have a
YouTube
hypothesis on.
pop-up ads?
So same question though, is make sure you have a hypothesis.
Okay.
You need to look at how much do the ads cost on a CPM rate. If I spend 500 there and 500 on Instagram, which one do I think will perform better and why? Just have a hypothesis going into it. Samir?
Okay.
Yes, hi. So in our case, since it's a new technology for port owners, I guess you're right. Maybe people not just look us up on Google, so or even on social media. So I guess the best way would be to be like phoning, having a list of potential customers, calling them one by one, have a demo, showing them the two PDFs, high and low, to see the reaction. I believe this would be the target in the first 30 days.
Yep, I think outbound in your case is definitely the right approach for the first 30 days. And then you can start to use that as social proof, where somebody can come in and say, oh, I saw the demo, you can go visit this location. Here's the videos we produced at that location, right? So, and then you can use testimonials to improve your marketing, to do part of your follow-up material as well. So
Okay,
then after I do
got
that
it.
call and demo, I can send you a follow-up email with here's what our first customer said about the product. Here's what the viewers say about their videos, right? So I want to be able to have those kind of logical marketing follow-on components as well. So, and those just take time to build out, right? There's not a good or bad. It just takes time to build them.
Great,
Right.
thank you.
Yeah, of course. Abdullah, you were next. I can't hear you. You're still muted, or your mic's not working. Still can't hear you. Let's go to Alyssa, and then we'll come back to you. Could
Can you
be.
hear me?
Oh, there you are. Okay, good.
No, my computer's a bit slow too. But what I was going to say is also test the channels, but more specifically test the messaging. We've already done a bit of testing and we've found that actually Instagram has been performing the best for us out of all of the social and paid ad channels. So really testing the messaging, because we have two sides. We have the buyers, and then we have the sellers, and then we have men and women and people who are focused on sustainability rather than fashion. So testing the messaging between each of these target customer segments.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to be doing lots of tests, and I would just encourage you to track your testing. Like right now, you're like, there's not that many tests, it's easy. But when you're 2 months into it, oh my gosh, it's not so easy. Like what ad was it we ran? And what was the price point we tested? So create a folder on your Google Drive and just put every test in there with your dates, with your information, and track it back to a Google Sheet. Trust me, when you have a bunch of them, it'll be the first two, you're like, this is easy, I don't have to track it. You have to track it. Thanks, Alyssa. That's great feedback.
Good point. Good
Ali?
point.
Yeah, I guess for us, it's gonna be to test our pricing through direct sales by contacting, the large corporations, and then if the feedback is positive, we're gonna go to LinkedIn apps. I mean, LinkedIn sponsored ads.
Great. Yeah, definitely check your CPM rates with the LinkedIn ads, because you'll find they're kind of expensive, but they're very well targeted, right? So even with that, I would look at back to the Alyssa's comment about your testing. So for everybody's benefit, think about what's the headline you're going to test, what's the body copy you're going to test, and what's your call to action, right? So then that will give you a chance to move that to a landing page where you can further expand on it. But you really got to get crisp on this. Goes back to our value proposition discussion yesterday. like, and niching out who that target market buyer is, because you'll be testing a lot of the things. If your value proposition is wrong, and this isn't directed at you guys, it's at everybody. If your value proposition is wrong, then all of your marketing spend will be wrong.
Okay.
And it's super expensive. So, all right. Nazir, are you taking it for Abdullah? You're on mute. I know it has a little red dot there. There you go.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm fine now.
Yep.
All right, so we're thinking of getting in touch with education consultants that already have a relationship with schools. So we get them to introduce the platform to those schools, and we'll go on and host a little competition in those schools so that the schools can see how it works quickly.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's, and you guys have already tested that channel and you know that channel works. So I would say that's probably
Exactly.
A, right?
Yeah.
So now the question is what additional marketing do you want to test? Do you want to go direct to schools? Do you want to do email marketing? Like, because you can probably buy a list of school administrators.
Okay, yeah. So yesterday, last night, we started thinking of getting emails of school principals and writing them like a proposal.
Got it.
Mm.
So, and then will you need to do a demo for them? I imagine proposals will be a requirement for you in most cases because they're.
Yes. So after the proposal, we'll maybe get them to do a Zoom meeting, and then we'll be able to show them how it works, and from there we'll pick it up.
Great. Awesome. All right, Monica.
Yeah, so for us, Dave, we've tested a couple of things in the past. Initially, we tried mailing lists and we tried to do A/B testing with the kind of messaging we were doing. That's when we learned that anything that had more than 300 words on the email was not being, the call to action was not being clicked. So then we kind of made that change there. Now, moving forward, I think for the next 30 days, our focus would be to test Instagram and TikTok, because those are the channels that work best for Gen Z audiences. And specifically for Instagram, we've learned that our video content does much better. So that's going to be our focus.
Great. Awesome. So the cost of producing the videos will be part of your marketing spend.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
From a tracking perspective, as you guys think about, again, comes back to like, you're going to build out a forecast, right? Your forecast is going to include monthly marketing spend. You're not going to get down to what channel in your forecast. But as you start to track it, what you're after is, okay, over the last quarter, we spent $3,000, 60% of it went to this channel, 20% to this channel, 20% to that channel. Which one produced my best leads and my fastest returns? Because right now you're going to over-index on speed.
Right.
So speed, time to close is super important to you all because you have limited resource to spend on marketing. Like it may be a slightly more expensive lead, but it closes faster. The answer is keep doing the slower leads, right? Keep
For the
doing
longer
marketing.
period. Okay.
But if you're gonna spend your 80-20, right, from a Pareto perspective, spend it on the fastest leads right now, because anytime you have traction, you're increasing your odds of success for fundraising.
Right.
Versus if you're building a pipeline of leads, right? But then none of them ever close. That's obviously a problem. All right, who's next? All right, I'm gonna put Monica's hand down. So anybody else have a 30-day plan they want to share with us? Okay. So so your deliverable on this one and what it's going to make it into your slide deck is your go-to-market plan, which is here's my 30, 60, 90-day plan. Here's the channels we're going to spend money on. Here's the sales activities we're going to drive. And here's what we expect to get. Again, I'm assuming you have a product you can do prototypes, you can do demos, you write how many demos will we schedule. Think about this in terms of activities and outcomes. So, and the more you have visibility to the outcome of your activity, this is going to get us so many leads, the better it is to get into the program. So, and then once you get into the program, you'll have 90 to 120 days before the demo day. The companies who have actual unit economic conversion metrics are the companies that have fastest path to fundraising, right? Because when you have that kind of unit economic data, you're de-risking it for the investor, right? Versus if I talk to you and you're like, yeah, well, once we get, once we raise $1 million, we'll be able to do blah. I'm like, not so much. Like I want to show that you were able to do something scrappy with the $10,000 in marketing spend before you have $1 million in spend, right? So it's going to be all about what's my conversion metrics and numbers. All right. All right. So let's take a quick 10 minutes. We'll come back for traction and product market fit. I know it feels like we came back late, but I've got us back kind of on time. So we'll take a quick 10-minute break and we'll be back for traction and product market fit. Devesh?
Yeah, sorry, just before we
no
break.
worries.
What if because we're spending all this time testing different channels, different marketing methods, taking the risk by investing in expensive ads and then trying some more free sort of trajectories in terms of marketing a product. What if those metrics don't actually add up because you spent all this time and all these months actually just testing out? So when it comes to, let's say, demo day or when you're in fact pitching to an investor, what if those metrics don't make sense because all you've been doing is testing out the market?
Well, hopefully you found an A that becomes your best case and you're doubling down on that. If you haven't found a channel that actually works for marketing, then you have probably a bigger picture question that could be a problem, right? Which is, does the market care about your product or not? And again, I'm not talking about your product specifically, but in general, what I'm after is creating from a business perspective, I'm creating a scalable, repeatable process, right? And we always think of it as sales and marketing motion, right? So what are the marketing activities and the sales activities I need to run so that I can create a forecastable revenue? Because this again comes back to, this is an input, if you will, for your revenue forecast.
Yeah.
If you don't know the data, it's super hard to build a forecast other than like, oh, I increased by 10% a month, right? That's not actually a useful forecast because you don't actually know if it works or not. So in your time in the program, what you're trying to figure out is like, you may come back and be like, oh, ours is just a direct sales process, like Muhammad's. It's like my marketing spend is, here's my one pager, here's my follow-up activities, here's the demos. And we've gotten really good at doing educational sales process where the marketing supports the sales process. If, however, you're creating leads through marketing that sales has to follow up with, then you're very marketing driven. But if you're doing a new product, then the answer is, in your case, we have to go sell to HR managers. Our marketing activity is pretty narrow, right? Other than maybe LinkedIn ads to HR managers at big companies. So in your case, it's really sales driven, which is, okay, what I need for sales to be effective is I have to buy lists that sales can call. And I have to support them with email marketing campaigns, follow-up campaigns, and email and support materials. Is probably the case in your case. So what you'll find is some channels produce better than other channels.
Yeah.
Like trade shows for you may be great, right? Except when there's no trade shows. So I was at one of the companies we invested in, I was on the board of, and we were talking about time to close. And this one's pertinent for you, but for some others as well. And on average, we were taking 92 days to close a lead from a trade show. And we were looking at it was the July board meeting. And so my question is how many more trade shows do you have in July, August, and September? Knowing that it takes 90 days to close. He's like, well, we don't have any in July and August. We have one in September. So the back of the napkin math said, we're going to miss our numbers for the year, right? Because all of our trade shows are lumpy, right? So and it was, the CEO had the moment of like, like, how did I miss that? And the answer is, you guys have tons of things you're focusing on, right? And what you're trying to do in this mechanic process is have a set of data that you can look at on a monthly basis. At some point, somebody in marketing and sales can do for you, right? Where you're like, we spend $1,000, 94 days, we get $1,000 back. Great. Now my question will be, how do I get it to 64 days? How do I get it to 34 days, right? And maybe the answer is we can't. We just have to get more leads at the top of the funnel. Great, that's an option too. So in your case, it's going to be sales driven. In some people's case on this call, it's going to be marketing driven. Just know that what I'm after as you come out of it is, if you want to get a check at demo day, you're like, our pipeline for future sales looks like this. we're going to go from 200,000 this year in revenue to 2 million next year in revenue. And what I want to know is you're going to actually have a chance at making that number versus I've had some portfolio companies that just plain whiffed. Like they missed their entire quarter with a 0. And you're like, how did that happen? Right. And the answer was, well, we didn't really have any motion, right? We were just, to your point, we were testing a bunch of things, but then we ended up testing the wrong thing and we got a whiff, right? Which is just a bummer. So long answer to your short question, but I think that's the how.
No, that's really helpful. Thanks.
Anybody else before we go to quick 5 minute, 10 minute? Yep.
Hi, Dave. Can I ask a quick one?
Yeah,
so the unit economics is, I I understand what you mean by unit economics, but if you've not got any revenue at the time so you can't really do a lifetime value on that customer, right?
Well, you still need to have a hypothesis, even if you don't have any data, right? I just want you to be able to look at it and go like, I think this average customer for us should be able to get a lifetime value in 12 months of $100, $200, $600, right? Because it brings up the question of, if you think that lifetime value starts with a basis of 0, then the question is, okay, well, how do you monetize that faster?
Okay.
Right? So think of it this way. If I can answer the back of the napkin math about your unit economics and do it in a simple way first, then when I do the big spreadsheet, it'll make more sense. If I can't answer the back of the napkin math, the complex spreadsheet's not going to be useful because you need some basic data to start.
So because if you don't have revenue, could you use like how long they stay on the app as an alternative to show that?
Yep. Time on site, engagement, definitely the case. So there's a company
like number of days, churn, all that kind of stuff.
There's a company here in Seattle called OfferUp. They're kind of a visual version of Craigslist, right? It starts with, it was mobile first, didn't even have a website or a functional website for a while. And they would lead with photos of stuff that you would take photos of from a Craigslist perspective. They raised money a few years ago with $1 billion post money value. And their key metric was time on app, because their average customer spent more time on the app than they spent on Facebook.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So if you have great customer engagement, the answer is we'll figure it out. If you don't have great customer engagement and you don't have unit economics, the question is, do you have a business?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Mohammed?
Hello, Dave. I just want to give this tip to my fellow founders who are based in Bahrain. We have this book, the Bahrain British Business Forum. It has the names of all the members and their emails and their mobiles. They can reach out to them. And of course, you have the guides to banks in Bahrain. It has everything you need to contact the banking industry. Yeah. And also we have Bahrain Who's Who. You can get this in Jashan Mall for, I don't know, 20 dinars. And you have all the influencers in Bahrain in the pages. So that's all.
Great, Mohammed. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks.
super helpful. Nazir?
Yeah, so for us, we charge schools an annual license. How will our lifetime value look like?
One more time, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so we charge annually an annual license fee. So how will our lifetime value look like?
So it'll start off with the 12-month lifetime value unless you have greater than 12 months of data. So what's your average contract value, your ACV for a school?
Sorry?
What's your annual contract value for that school? What's the license fee?
That's like $750.
Okay, $750 per school. And do you see that fee going up annually, or do you see that fee coming down annually? Like as you guys add more features, does the annual contract value go up? Probably.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was cut off.
Yeah. No, I said, does your annual contract value go up? Do you anticipate that 750 to go to 1,000?
Yes, that's the minimum actually.
Okay. So what you'll do is end up tiering out who your customers are. So I have, 20% of my customers are 750 ATV lifetime value, 50% are $1,000, and 30% are $2,000 or $2,500.
Okay.
So you'll start to tier out your pricing based on that. And as you have actual data, you can increase your lifetime value.
Okay.
You just don't want to.
So it's still within 12 months.
So 12 months to start. And once you guys have, if you have, what's your longest customer so far?
They've not been there for more than a year. So
okay. So once you have 18 months worth of data, you can have an 18-month LTV.
Oh, okay.
Right. So one of the companies I'm on the board of, our lifetime value is 10 years, which means we're willing to forego all of our upfront profit because every customer we get has a lifetime value of 10 years. Now, I don't want to give up profit on every customer, but I'm willing to. Right. So once you have the data, you can make that calculation, but you kind of need to start with, you need to have the data first to make sure it works.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So I'm gonna make this suggestion since we're at the top of the hour and we've got, in 30 minutes, we have local teams coming in to talk about traction and product market fit. So if you need to take a break, grab a coffee, go off video, go do that, but we'll just kind of keep rolling through here. And we'll get to the local team here in 30 minutes as well. So let's talk about traction and product market fit, because that's really your big milestone that you're after. So we talked yesterday about having the two pieces of time, everything pre-product market fit and everything post-product market fit. So what you're after in the pre-stage is we just want to get to product market fit. Post-product market fit, you have a whole new set of questions, right? How to run a board meeting, how to structure the financing, right? And you'll probably get the financing question before you get to product market fit, but you'll run a whole different set of questions and challenges. So my encouragement to you in pre-product market fit stage is really spend time like, do I have to do this now? Like, is your, do you need to worry about culture now? You know, again, it's stuff you can come back and fix later, right? What I want you to focus on is the pre-product market fit looks like some revenue. I have some revenue, I have some customers, I have some marketing, I have some hypothesis, right? The closer you get to product market fit, you're going to start looking at it and going, okay, I know if we spend this money this month, that we'll get this many customers next month and the following month. So one of the exercises you'll see that you go from in your financial modeling is that financial model goes from this abstract thing that you did this one time because somebody told you you had to do it for the program to actually something you start tracking forecast versus actual. So you're going to shift from this one-time thing I put in a 3-ring binder and print out, and I just use the charts and the graphs for my pitch deck, to actually tracking your forecast to actual on a monthly basis. And how close are you to that plan? So the shift here from investor perspective is right now you all are pretty risk capital. It's either it works or it doesn't work. It's super binary, right? The more you have a marketing and sales motion, and the more you have some predictability and forecastability of revenue, the more the dialogue shifts into growth capital versus risk capital. And the pool of investors you start to talk to broadens out a lot. Because if you've de-risked the investment because I can forecast revenue, now all of a sudden the answer is, well, I'm really talking about funding your growth, not funding will it work or not. Now, between now and then, you're just trying to get closer to that number, right? So predictable and scalable revenue is kind of what you're after from a timing perspective. As I begin to grow it, I'm going to have cohort analysis, like we were just talking about for the school company, right? What do I think my split are between small, basic schools, medium schools, and high schools? Right? In this case, not high in from a grade perspective, but my top revenue companies. Is it, 20, 60, 20, right? Is it 10, 80, 10, right? I'm starting to, because then I know where to send my sales activity on targeting schools that have greater than this many students, right? Because even though they may take a little longer to close, it may be twice the revenue as a basic school. So what I'm after from that standpoint is prioritizing my resources to go after my best relatable customers. So that's part of your process. And then I'm starting to scale my marketing efforts. So right now, most of you have zero marketing spend. You start with $100 in marketing spend and go to $1,000 in marketing spend, you're going to learn a lot in that process, but you have to do that process before you can do 10,000. So again, the forecastability is what I'm after here, and having when somebody says, so how are you going to go to market? And the answer is, well, we're going to figure that out. Versus like, well, we spent $1,000 last month, it generated 14 leads, those 14 leads, 3 closed. Like that data by itself is better than no data, right? If you're doing a B2C deal, and the answer is for every new customer we acquire, our cost of customer acquisition is $10 and they refer 4 people, great. Like that's great data as well. And they spend this much time on the site or this much time in the app, great, right? Ultimately, the question is how many millions of dollars will it take for you to acquire that many customers? So you can actually, utilize advertising as a method, or commit or convert over to subscription. If before you have data, the thing I want you to have is a hypothesis. So as you think about the selection committee, they're going to hear from 30 companies. They're going to select 10. So the more you have a level of conviction about how you're going to spend it, what your marketing activities are, how you're going to sell it, you'll be in the top tier. The more the answer is, well, we don't know, but we hope we can really use Flat6 to figure it out, you may make it in, right? But the idea here is I really want you to have at least a hypothesis with a level of conviction. Go test it. And if you're wrong, right? But versus having no hypothesis is a big difference, right? So that's what I want you to think about as you come into the pitch demos or the pitch program. Post product market fit, this will become easier to track. The method of it was originally created to gauge product market fit was actually a negative test. So, but you need customers to do this test. So it's a little tough for you guys to do it at this point, right? But the thesis here was the guy who started Growth Hackers was the guy who originally came up with a PMF test. But they would go out and interview their customers and say, if you couldn't use this product, how disappointing would it be? And if it was very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed, or I no longer use it, and it was 4, 3, 2, 1, and they would score it based on the 4, 3, 2, 1 descending order. So that's how you test it when you have customers. You all are too early for that. The takeaway here is product market fit is just math, right? So I need to apply some sort of math to your hypothesis. We're going to spend this amount of money. We're going to get this many leads. These many leads are going to lead to this many demos. This many demos are going to lead to this many customers over this amount of time. So I know you don't know the answer yet, and that's okay. But what I want to move you towards is push you to like at least have a hypothesis of we're going to spend money on trade shows, or we're going to spend money on, we're going to buy all the lists that Mohammed just gave us, and I'm going to do cold calls with my co-founder. Great, right? No plan is back to miracles, and miracles won't get you in the program. Okay. A few things you're going to track over time as you grow up in this process. Churn rate. What's my initial churn rate? How many people stay? How many people leave? If you're doing an app, the question of how frequently are they on the site? How much time do they spend on the site are going to be key metrics you're going to want to track. So net negative churn is, I was talking with Nazir about, like, do you anticipate that the average customer volume or value will go up from year to year? That's called net negative churn. It's a positive number, right? Which is my annual contract value went from $750 to $1,000 to $1,500. Great, I have a net negative churn number that I got to talk about. I'm going to use either a net promoter score or a customer satisfaction score. Again, not today. This is at a mature state. The direction you'll move is to be able to track what do customers think about it. Your early indication on these ones are simply time on site, customer satisfaction, but you want to move from a gut feel at some point to actual numbers. So when we did Startup Weekend, my last full year there, we did 1,200 plus events. We sent out surveys to 90+% of them, and we use what's called Net Promoter Score, which is a 0 to 10 scale. And you're looking for 9s and 10s. 8s are neutral. 7 and below is negative. So when I first got there, our net promoter score was 63 and people felt pretty good about it. I'm like, 63 is actually a negative in NPS. So we went from 63 to 92. But it had a lot to do with when did we survey them? Did we survey them in their native language or not? So we had surveys in, I think, 9 different languages, because the number of people who responded to a limited language set it would either be a super enthusiastic response or a super negative response. There was no in between, because we didn't have enough languages to use it in. So you have to think about how you ask those customer satisfaction numbers. Product usage, frequency, recency. Again, I mentioned before we got started with when Google bought Nest, one of the things they bought it for was it passed what they called the toothbrush test. It was a product that people wanted to use more every day or multiple times a day. So the question is how do you make your product sticky enough so it's not just something they use once a month or once a week? How do you get them to use it every day? Do you add text message notifications through Twilio, right? Do you do email updates for notifications like LinkedIn, the LinkedIn ones that are super annoying that tell you have a notification but don't tell you what the notification is? So what tools do you use to keep people engaged? And then what's your growth rate? So if the business is growing fast, raising funds is actually relatively easy. If the business is flat or stalled or has never really taken off, then raising funds is super difficult, right? So just know that those are questions that you're going to get asked as you go through the process. All right, so what's traction? So traction tends to be a word that investors use frequently, that means something you don't have yet, right? And it tends to be, it's not tangible. So I'd encourage you to ask the question for them of what kind of traction would you like to see before we meet again? Is that customer acquisition? Is it usage? What's the statistic you would want to see? But typically you'll see this as even a meme in the venture capital community. And it's hey, come back and see me when you have traction. But founders don't ask what kind of traction they want, and it can be super obscure. So just know that that's part of the process you're trying to do, is answer the question. So went the wrong direction on that slide. So sales growth, and then one of the things you're going to find over time is you're going to have you're going to have an LTV to CAC ratio, and you're going to start to monitor that traction over time. So that you're looking at, is my marketing spend going up? Is my marketing spend being effective? What's my LTV to CAC ratio? So as you have that data, you'll know you're getting closer to product market fit. There's a compounding effect on these things if you think about this from a funnel perspective. If my leads at the top of the funnel are going up, if my time to close is coming down, if my average revenue per user is going up, then there's a compounding effect like compound interest. So that was where we would look to invest in the company, right? If your leads were going up but your closing ratio wasn't good yet, I'd be like, let's look at that number. When you start to see that number coming down, let's talk. Or when they're like, oh, we increased our price and our total contract value is going up, right? So we would look at those components of the math, and we would make an investment based on, is the company getting traction around those unit economic measurement. So Mohammed?
Yes, Dave, for LTV, do you use the time value of money, or just make it simple?
Just keep it simple. Yeah. I mean, at some point when you're more mature, you can do a discounted cash flow, and you can add complexity. Right now, my basic rule of thumb for you all is if the back of the napkin doesn't work, then the complex one won't work either. So know that that's kind of out there as well. All right, so where are we from? All right, so I'm going to walk you through some quick financial modeling stuff before we go to the local teams on their experience with traction and product market fit. In fact, let me send a quick note. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick, and this is a very quick financial modeling 101 session. I'm going to share with you the templates. I'm going to walk you through some basics, and by that I mean super basics, because I want you to park this as a resource you can use later, like after you get in the program, right? but I want to give you at least a primer on it, so it's not coming as a complete as something that's completely new and you've never heard of before. All right, so there's 4 templates in the Google Drive. I'm going to open that and share that screen with you real quick. And these, I will share it in the chat window as well. My request for you is that you make a copy. You can make a copy of all of them. You can make a copy of none of them. It won't hurt my feelings one way or the other. The one thing I ask that you do is don't change the template and put your data into it, because that doesn't help anybody. So there's 4 models here on this, and I'll share the screen with you. So there's 4 models here that you can use. There's a marketplace model, a subscription model, a transaction fee model, which really is focused on when you're not booking the top line revenue, you're only booking the fee. And the last one is a productize a service model. So let me walk you through productize a service. I'm not going to download it. I'm just going to use it from Google Drive to walk you through the template. So the template has the basic pieces are here, and I'm going to walk you through the tabs at the bottom and start with assumptions and work our way backwards, right? So the reason I bring up this model first is this is the most robust model. So if you have multiple products, services, and setup fees, or your subscription and transaction, this model is the most flexible and has the most complexity built into it. If you're just doing subscription, great. The subscription model is just that. If you're doing a marketplace, it recognizes you have buyers and sellers, right? So your assumptions tab here, you'll see is I have service number 1, service number 2, service number 3. I have churn for those services. I have setup fees, and I have product sales. And product sales in this case are non-recurring product sales. Could be one-time product sale. So I have a list of prices, and you'll see that I've broken them down by year. Does my price go up in year 2 because I added new features? Does my price go down because I'm going to de-feature that product? So, but the idea here is I have all of my assumptions for the most part on one page. So within the venture community, if you give me a model where you've built your formula into the template, I'll break it and put my assumptions into one page because I want to test your sensitivity analysis. Like, what if my cost of customer acquisition goes up by 2? What if my price goes down by half? Right? So what I'm testing is like, where does it break? So the way this model is set up is that most of your assumptions are in one place. So you'll see down here too, I have things like accounts receivable as a percentage of sales, and line of credit or notes payable in case I have to do, in case I have to use capital to secure funding. So I'll give you an example. My first company, we grew from 0 to 32 million in sales in 4 years. So my cash flow on that business, because what's called day sales outstanding and day payment outstanding, was different. So we bought software from Microsoft as a distributor. We had to pay Microsoft in 30 days. At 32 million in revenue, I was doing $2.5 million a month. My customer paid me on average in 42 days. You see my problem? I have 12 days of float I have to carry. Selling equity to cover that float is ridiculously expensive, right? Because I have to sell my stock to cover float. So that's why this number is down here in my cost of cash and my accounts receivable. If you're doing straight subscription, you'll notice that that's not there, right? Because you're getting paid in advance for the product. But again, this is the complex model. So your assumptions are on one tab. You can go in and put your pricing. The next tab is your graphs and charts. This one, unless you break it, is fine. So as you add information, this will give you the charts and graphs that you need to put into your pitch deck. You'll see here that I have over here a yearly summary. I have a quarterly summary. The quarterly summary feeds the charts and graphs. So something again, unless you break something, this one should be okay. You'll know if you break it because one of the lines is broken. You can hit Command Z if you have to, or go back and find out where you broke it. Compensation is the next tab. What do I need to do from a hiring perspective to get the right people on the bus at the right time? What am I going to pay myself? A couple things on this chart. You'll see that I have headcount, totals. All of those headcount by department totals roll over into your chart and tells you how many people I have at the end of year 3 or year 4. Most of the forecast the VCs are going to ask you for are going to be 3 to 5 year forecasts, right? Is the 3-year exercise is working with your assumptions. The 5-year exercise is just guessing, right? So just know that that's part of the process. Part of it is, do you know how to use Excel? Do you have the discipline to use it? And part of it is, do your assumptions make sense? So that's what I'm after here. What this is broken down into is, you'll see I have administration up here. I have development, I have accounting and finance, I have marketing, and I have sales, all the headcount. The reason they're broken down by department is they fall into that department level expense for your balance sheet, which is on page 1. And I'll walk you through that in a second. If you're not an accountant or finance person, I wasn't either. I just had to get good at this because I couldn't afford to buy anybody to do it. So I had to figure it out. So, and this represents some numbers that are basic for West Coast. So make them your own, but they're there as an example. Okay. Revenue is your next tab. That tab basically has some manual inputs based on how many customers do we expect to add on a monthly basis. Again, keep in mind, the first 10 customers is totally hand-to-hand combat. I'm not adding 10% customers per month or 20% customers per month. I'm like, how many customers can I go sell this month, right? So your first few customers are going to be based on just manually inputted numbers. You can get more complex later. So those then pull over into my monthly, it pulls from my assumptions tab, you'll see here, and then calculates my revenue on a monthly basis, okay? Down here in the bottom, I have total revenues and I have revenue by category. So for example, if I have services revenue, I have different gross margin on services because people are involved, and I have higher gross margins on subscriptions because I build the software once, people use it over and over again, okay? All right, then that pulls over to my forecast. My forecast then has all my revenue by type. So, which allows me to calculate what my revenue gross margin and percentages are. So I have total revenue, I have my cost of sales, which is all my marketing and sales expenses associated with selling the product, which gets me to my gross margin percentage. I then have to add, after my gross margin to get to net margin, I have to add back management, information technology or engineering, accounting and finance expense, and I have marketing department level expenses versus sales level expenses, right? General and administrative expense then has things like equipment rental, and you'll see that these numbers are manually input as well. So you can add those across. That then totals down to my net income and loss, as well as my cumulative net income and loss. And down here, I have a balance sheet, and the balance sheet gives me the information around current assets and liabilities, as well as shareholder equity. And shareholder equity is the thing that varies. So again, if you're new to this one, this is here as a tool for you to use. Don't go like this. You'll jump into one of these and you'll spend 8 hours on something. You're like, where did I lose the 8 hours on? Like, don't do that. Save yourself. Know that this is here for you when you're ready for it. But I wanted to give you at least a primer on it now, so that it's not something that's completely new, and you know you can go back to the files and do that. So so that's the quick review on that one. Let me switch screens here. I know that Hussein's coming back to join us for the traction topic as well. All right. Okay. Can you guys see my template slide again? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you can click on the Google Drive. You can go back to it. Samir, you have a question?
Yes, actually. Since now we covered a lot of information about traction and product market fit, and now the financial modeling. Now, I know you said that the financial modeling, we should keep it till the program, when we actually get into the program. But in terms of what we need for the presentation to the committee, What do you think we should highlight in one slide about everything we learned in the previous part, not just the financing and modeling?
So the big thing here is you're going to tease out traction through your entire pitch, like if you have it, right? So in your case, you're still exploring the viability of the product. So the thing you'll talk about is how many potential customers have you talked to with customer development? If you talk to 10 or 20 or 0, right? I mean, that's kind of the question on the continuum. If you have users and you're on your second version of the product and you have people that with time on site, then what you want to highlight is what do you think the key measurements are that you actually want to track? And how are you going to use the time in the program to increase those numbers, right? So that's kind of your critical success path. Is think of it this way: if you're coming to pitch the team, what you're saying is, here's where we are today, and here's where we expect to be. The program data.
Great.
Share the. If you have a hypothesis, share the hypothesis, but make sure you've thought through it. What you don't want to be doing is like, oh, we're going to figure it out when we get into the program. That's where I don't want you to do. I'd be like, I would feel like I failed you if that was the case.
Right? You won't.
You'd be at a disadvantage compared to the other founders on the call.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let me give you a few last heuristics and things you should know about financial modeling, and then we'll go back to any other questions before we go on to the team's feedback. So a couple notes on rules of thumb and heuristics. Like you're all going from basically 0 revenue or super small revenue. If you forecast $100 million in 5 years, you would be at the top of the Inc. 500 list for the last decade. So in the US, we have Inc. magazine, and Inc. 500 is the list of the 500 fastest growing companies. All of them start with a base revenue of $1 million. And what we did was we tracked the last decade's worth of that data for the top 10 list. And if you actually hit $100 million, you would almost, I think all but 2 years, be the #1 company, starting at 0, not 1. So know that if you go from 0 to $40 million in 5 years, that's incredible. Right. So you don't have to, you don't have to be like, we went to $1 billion, right? So, because what happens when you do that is when you leave the room, we kind of chuckle as investors and go, oh, that's so cute. Right. So just know that that's not the number you're after. Right. So start with your assumptions tab first, like I walked you through the phase, get in your product and pricing information that we talked through earlier in the workshop. And then think about your release timing realistically. Like, when do you expect this product to be available, assuming you're bootstrapping as you are now, right? How long is it going to take you to ship it? Scale your revenues first, and then come back and make sure you've scaled your expenses as well. But what you're after on the first chart is for the demo day is you're going to need to do a chart that has a financing up and to the right model. So in the initial phase, what you really want to do is make sure that you focus on the revenue components first, and then come back and do the expenses to follow on. If your gross margins get way out of whack, it means you probably haven't added enough expenses in the later years. Just know that that's a reality as well. Okay. And then last, just look for some heuristics around if you end up with 96% margins, like you haven't added enough expense in people. And for most of you, it's all going to be about people, right? People and engineering and product development cycles. So realistically, the question is, when can you hire those people? How long will it take them to ramp? You're in a super competitive market, right? In both Bahrain and in tech right now anyway, which means that it's going to take you, if you put that in 30 days, we're going to hire a VP of engineering, and getting them productive and ramped up is just going to take you longer. So just know that that's part of the process. It takes more work to ramp up staffing, right? Because you have a recruiting process and things like that as well. So that's it on financial modeling for this one. Come back to it after you get into the program, or if you don't get in the program and you need to do your own financial model because you're growing, great. It's a resource there. Feel free to make a copy for yourself and then copy it over. Questions about your go-to-market plan, questions about traction before we break into Hussein, are you back on the call? Guess I have to go look at page 2. So I don't think he's here quite yet. So questions about your part of the plan before we talk about their experience. I've overwhelmed you with financial modeling information. You're all like, exactly. Mohammed had the right face for it.
I'm a CFO by profession, so that's not a problem.
Got it. So you need to work on the sales and marketing side instead.
I'm a salesman too, so that's no worry.
Yeah, that makes you unique for sure. So I learned the finance side because I couldn't afford to hire anybody. One of the things you'll find is that as a founder is you'll end up being a generalist, because if you can hire somebody to do the job, you'll take on all the duties you can't hire to have done. So you'll end up being really good at lots of different things, right? So yeah, so get ready to be a generalist.
Yeah, I'm here for everyone if they need anything on the modeling.
That is an awesome offer. Take advantage of that, you all, because you're really trying to figure out, for example, what your numbers should be, and trying to figure out what your metrics are. And again, I think back to Hussein's point was we thought they were going to be this way, and we figured out that they were this way. And as we did that, it changes how you look at the business, right? Aside from pivoting. So
Dave, I wanted to ask about this issue. When you first acquire customers, and if you're developing something new, it's likely that you'll give so much support. So how do you factor that? Do I take a percentage of the sales and say, I'll be spending this on support?
So in the early days, you'll get some early indications of what your cost of support will be. So for example, you have two ways to look at support. There's sales support, so sales development reps or customer success. And usually customer success is going to be a sales support expense, because it's going to be, Dave made the sale, I'm going to hand them off to Mohammed because Mohammed can help onboard them and get them ramped up. But until they're successfully ramped up, it's not really a straight support, right? That's really part of the sales process. Then you'll look at your cost of supporting the customer. So for example, you're going to take all of your AWS monthly bill and divide it by the number of customers, right? So the goal there is, I've spent all this money building the product. Now I have this hosted product, but the expense is going to go up as usage goes up. So if I have 10 customers, I have to divide that monthly cost by 10. But if I have 100, my cost of support goes down on the straight computing cost. Now the question is on support team, because at some point you're going to take your developers, and your developers are going to get tired of doing support, because typically developers only like to work on new product and new features. They don't want to work on bug fixes and old features. So the question is, who's my customer support person who supports that customer then, and what's the headcount required? Initially, it's going to be the existing engineering team. And it's frankly good to help them make sure they get the product right. But at some point you may look at it and say, no, we need a frontline support person who can be the first call, so we don't have to stop engineering from what they're doing to do support. That's the way I would look at it initially.
Thank you.
Yeah, so basically my question is, in the go-to-market strategy, we'll be writing all the assumptions and hypotheses we have on how much revenue we'll make in the first year, the second year, the third year, what's going to be our cost, right?
Yep.
And so secondly, I remember we had like the 10 to 12 slides. There was the last slide, which is like clear ask. So this goes along with the same slide, or that's a separate slide we give to Flat6 Lab itself, or it's like generally what we need, or
you'll always have one in all of your pitches, but for Flat6, what they're looking for specifically is why Flat6 and why Bahrain. So in your ask for them, they'll be most interested in that. Now, when you take that same slide deck and do a 500 startups pitch or a fundraising pitch, you may be, hey, we're looking for access to customers, or we're looking for a board member, or because you're always looking for employees and you're always looking for customers. You're occasionally looking for money. In the case of Flat6 in your pitch for them on Monday, what you're going to talk about is, that the amount is the same, right? For everybody, it's just a question of what percentage. Right. And I think one of the big questions people always ask is, well, Dave, what's my value worth? And should I give up 5% or 10%? And the answer is, it depends on the stage of your company, right? So because West Coast values are different than Bahrain values. Like, so we did an analysis recently of market comparables, right? So if Seattle benchmarked at 100%, then Silicon Valley's at 180%, and New York's at 130%, but MENA's at 30%, right? So, which makes it as an investor from an arbitrage standpoint, actually quite interesting, right? As long as your speed to market is still good. So your valuation and how much of the company you give up is your one big negotiable. But for the pitch deck, again, for Monday, it's why Bahrain? Is it really market access to MENA? Is it market access to GCC? Is it I need access to the mentors? Do I need the programmatic help? So they want to know that you're there because it's actually helpful for you, because that's part of, you know, their sponsors want to know that they're recruiting the right companies as well.
Great. Secondly, on the product roadmap, okay, so it's better if we give, so in our case, our solution can be split in two, okay, and the first one is easier and faster to develop, and that can be sold to enterprises, and we also have some potential customers there itself. So should we highlight that as well, that okay, in the first 2 months we'll be done with the product, we have this on board and we'll have some revenue coming on. So how do you map, and where do we map this to in the pitch?
Yeah, so you're going to do a timeline slide for your product and company roadmap. Will be one of your slides will end up being a timeline. So that may be the 11th slide if we do it that way. I'll ask Salah to make sure I have all of the right slides that he wants. But your timeline slide is typically 18 months, and it showcases a number of things. So big picture perspective real quick. Early stage, you're raising money for 6 months, maybe 12 months, right? I mean, you're raising enough money to prove your next concept, right, and validate it. When you start getting into real venture capital raises, you're raising for 18 months. So you can basically deploy the capital for 12 months, then take 6 months to go raise the next round. So you should think about your time frame as an 18-month time frame. So when do we launch? What product are we going to launch? When do we have first customers, right? And then what are my milestones in that 18-month? And think of it quarterly. It doesn't have to be more precise than quarterly, right? I don't want it to be an eye chart. It should just be a workflow that says, here's where we are today. In 30 days, we're going to have this first product shipped. In 90 days, we're going to have the second product shipped. Here's our first customers, right? So simple is better. And then apply graphics and design to it later, right? You should have some graphic and design applied to your pitch deck, by the way, before Monday. So even if you do it on Fiverr and have somebody do it really fast. So that should be your timeline slide. So, and it should tie together, you know, product, key hires, revenue, and customers as at least a place to start.
Great, thanks.
Nazir?
Thank you.
Yeah, with regards to the funding, does it necessarily have to be equity based right there?
From Flat6?
Yes.
Flat6 will be equity based.
Okay.
So you bring up a good point. We'll talk about in our fundraising fundamentals section tomorrow. So typically you can do debt or you can do equity.
Okay.
Right. So debt funding typically means I'm going to give a note or convertible debt that at some point will convert into equity at a future round of funding. Yeah. So the good news about convertible debt, hey Hussein, welcome back. The good news about convertible debt is it's cheap and it's easy for you to use as a mechanic to get money into the company. The drawback for me as an investor is you don't have to pay me back in stock. Like if you sell early, I could get my money back plus interest, which is not why I invested in the company.
Yeah.
Right? I invested because I want the upside. Right.
Yes.
So, and we just
the reason why, okay.
That basically they didn't get as much preference or as much stock as they thought they were going to get. In the case of Flat6 and most institutional investors, VCs and incubators and accelerators, they actually want to own your stock, right? Versus own debt in your company.
Okay.
So it depends on the accelerator program, But the difference is if they own equity, they own a percentage of the company. If they have debt, they're in first position. Should you sell, they get paid back first. But all of the investors in any venture scale companies are going to want to actually own equity at some point.
Because I'm looking at how difficult it will be for me to really assign value to my business at this stage.
Right. So the reason convertible debt and safes, and I'm not sure the mechanic they use, they'll talk about it on Wednesday morning, but a safe is basically like a convertible debt, and it's easy, but it's based on a future priced round. Because of just that reason, like I don't know what your company's worth yet either. So by doing a safe, they're basically capping their round and setting a price to be determined later, which is a completely great way to do it.
Exactly. So I was thinking that was an option maybe for them.
So safes are convertible debt. So, hey Hussein, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm well. Surprisingly, I'm not in my room or in my office. I actually went on a client meeting and ended up having to ask the guy whether I can use any available room, and he gave me his personal space in his office. So,
well, that was very nice. So
that was very nice.
There's
a dartboard behind me.
Exactly.
A minor upgrade.
The view doesn't look as nice though.
Absolutely not. No.
All right. So the topic now is on traction and product market fit. So
awesome.
So
awesome.
when you move that direction, how did you know you had product market fit, and what were the early indicators? And you know, I was talking with the group about traction is typically something investors say you need, but they won't tell you what it is. So what's been your experience in that conversation with fundraising? He laughs.
Let me give you a quick piece of advice about investors. You know, they expect you to know exactly what they want, when in reality, majority of them don't know what they want anyways. So let's set that aside. So when it comes to product market fit, the only way for you to be able to understand what product market fit is when you have traction. So they sit hand in hand with each other. If the business has been growing and you're acquiring users on a daily basis, and you have a steady month-over-month growth that's either steady or heavily aggressively increasing, and then you reach to a certain level where customers are using your product comfortably, where you're not able to, where you're not getting a lot of concerns about how the product is going, and all you're doing now is just adding arms and arms to your existing system. Then I think that's about the right time for you to claim that you've achieved product market fit. We can say, for example, with us in Deluni, I can talk to an investor based out of Saudi Arabia and tell him that I've achieved product market fit in Bahrain. But their response would be, no, you haven't achieved product market fit because you're still in Bahrain. So there's so many different arguments that you're going to go through one way or the other. But in the end, my take on what product market fit is do you have customers using it? Are they paying you money for it? Is it working? And your customers are increasing organically without you having to really push yourself to acquire them? Then you have product market fit.
So one of the things I always look at with that is basically the math, right? I always think of product market fit. If I take the ambiguity out of it, it's based on math, right? Are my leads going up? Are my conversion rates going down? Is my average revenue per customer going up? Like, if I have that basic math, at least I can start to point to it. But to your point, when I found a customer that I never talked to before, or my sales team was like, hey, this is not somebody in Dave's network, like that was like, wow, we actually are moving that direction. For you guys, what was the early indication of PMF?
So our early indication of PMF was when we started seeing our customers selling products to people out of the country. Literally, this to me was PMF, because our focus was, again, we are really focused on scale. Our business is a very high cash burn business. It requires a ton of traction, a ton of lead generation, a ton of card generation, which I mentioned earlier. So for us the major indicator for us that we've achieved product market fit was when we saw, I gave you the coffee machine example earlier today, when we saw one user prefer one coffee machine and it ending up with 260 sales for that single coffee machine, to the extent where a distributor, and that user is fresh, new, not someone that we've approached on any advertising. This all happened without us having a campaign anywhere. And then we realized that, a distributor calls us, goes like, hey, I'm out of stock. I can't fulfill these orders unless I recall stock from the market. Then that for me was, wow, there you go. That it's working. You know, it's not just a bunch of users looking at my products. It's actually people utilizing this and using it. That was the major indicator for us as Deloitte.
And when you talk to investors about, because your concept is pretty new, right? What were investors looking for what type of traction were they looking for to de-risk their investment? Because you're doing something that's never been done before, or at least they've probably never seen before.
Yeah. So there's this fun story that I tell about that as well. So one day I had a meeting with two investors back to back. I spoke to one of them, and his response was that an actual rejection. They rejected investing with us, which, by the way, all of you need to get used to. Rejection is part of the game. So it was an actual rejection. So they said, hey, we would rather not invest with you because we can't find another company that does exactly what you do for us to compare you against. So in my book, that's a good thing. But anyways, I said, okay, fine, makes sense, whatever, it's okay. Thank you for the quick rejection at least. Later on, that's the other investor that I had the second meeting with. The respondent was like, Hussein, you're in the e-commerce space, and that's very heavy and it's very congested, and so many people are doing what you're doing. So you're stuck in that dilemma of, am I doing something right or am I not doing something? Who's right? Who do I believe? So again, don't base a lot of emphasis on this. Take the advice that they give you when it comes to enhancing your platform. But generally, investors, when they talk to you, they want you to know, they want to understand that you know your unit economics, you know your key metric that matters. They want to know that you know what it is that you're doing, and obviously they want to know what it is that you want from them. So if you speak to an investor, make sure you have your studies and your due diligence about the investor just as much as they would have it on you. You want to talk to them, tell them, listen, I know that you've invested in this business that does buy now, pay later solutions. I need it in my business. I need to connect with them. So it just makes sense for you to invest with us. If you don't, please hook me up with these guys. Something like that. This way, the investor will understand that, hey, this guy is driven. The startup is actually something that makes sense, and they know exactly what they want and they know what they're doing. I think it's time for me to put some money in and invest in it.
Great. Sorry, we're going to talk about fundraising with the team tomorrow, but give us a little teaser on your experience. And you got into the program, you've done this before. What was your experience in fundraising in the region?
So I was lucky enough to go through fundraising pre-ecosystem in the region to post-ecosystem in the region. So pre-startup existence, and I wouldn't say existence, obviously they existed, but we didn't have all those support schemes. No accelerators existed in 2012, 2013. I knew, and I fell into the hole of, hey, somebody wanting to invest and take majority a chunk of the business and from day one. And that was very difficult to acquire back then. But given my investment banking background, my business development background, it was easy to get in front of those people. Today, on the other hand, the fundraising, the whole fundraising thing is actually a bit easier than it used to be because there's an abundance of venture capital firms. There's an abundance of accelerators. There's an abundance of people that are, getting themselves educated and investing in venture capital generally. I'm not going to say it's easier to convince them. It's easier to get in front of them, in front of those people. But the whole thing is they're getting very well educated. So as I said, anybody that wants to approach anybody to get the funding, you got to be able to know, forgive my French, you got to know your shit. You got to know everything. If you know what it is that you're doing, then you sit in front of them and you talk to them about it, they're going to get convinced. And again, it's easier now to get in front of them. I'm not going to say it's much easier to get funded though. Depends where you're headquartered. There's so many different aspects that we can talk about, and I can just go on for hours about this.
So one of the things I observed from both being a founder and being a VC is, especially funds that are relatively new, is fund managers get paid to take meetings, but they won't always give you much feedback. And I'm guessing it's the same in your ecosystem as well.
So absolutely, 100%. There. Sure. So. I would, first off, I'm the type of person that's going to demand feedback. Whether, I will always demand feedback. I'll demand it. I'm like, listen, I'm talking to you. I'm going to pitch to you. Before you tell me anything about money, I just want to know what you think about my business and where you think I'm going wrong. And then I start talking to them about everything else. I always start my pitches this way with any investor I speak with, because I want them to know that this is what I expect. The least I expect from you is to give me feedback. It works. I think around 70% of the time it does work. The remainder of the time they just go like, hey, we'll send you an email. Just drop us the email with those unit economic documents and let's take a look at it. And they never respond, or they send an email with a rejection for no good reason. I'll tell you the funniest rejection I got. A guy told me, hey, Hussein, we love you. We love your team. We love your passion. We love the business. The business is growing significantly, but there's something missing. And then when I asked, can you tell me what that something is? Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something missing. And that's why we're not investing. Now that to me was just utter bullshit, to be honest. So here's the thing. You're never going to find exactly the type of investor that you want on board with you. If you do, you're very lucky. But you always make sure to push to get that feedback. My experience was we didn't, I always got what I wanted in terms of feedback. And when a rejection happens, obviously, and then obviously after an investment happens, you still want to get that continuous feedback, because that investor has to be strategic. I am not a fan of money that's not strategic. So a lot of VCs in our region are just going to give you money, just leave you and walk away, and expect you to come back with some sort of return at some point in the future. Me, I don't prefer that. I prefer when you give me money, you're going to add value to me, because I can always find money, but I need value as well. So that's I think something.
And value there is in terms of market access to talent, access to customers. What else would you throw into that category of value add?
Partnerships with other portfolio companies, for example. Value add would be, for example, sitting down and actually giving product feedback. It's important. If your investor is not a user of your platform, then why is that? They believed in you to an extent where they gave you money, and they're, they say they're supporting you, but they're not using your platform. You got to be able to get that feedback from them. Try to push them to get them to use it, and understand how you can help. Your investor, I think, is the ideal investor would be someone that could potentially be your customer and that knows your product by heart. They should be able to walk out, and when you call them up, hey, listen, I need to fundraise today, and because I need to scale into these multiple countries, they should walk out and speak to investors on your behalf and pitch the business just as well as you pitch your business to them. It's natural. It's because they're invested in you. That's the whole thing. So
I love the fact that you have a high standard for both feedback and your investors. I know in Seattle we have what we call Seattle Nice, right? Which is people will take the meeting and they'll be like, oh, that's really awesome. You're really making great progress, but the founders will walk away going, oh, that was a great meeting, and the answer was no, it wasn't. That was a worthless meeting. Because they invest in later stage, and they don't invest a small size check. So I think that the fact that you're asking for feedback is awesome, and would have been great advice for my early ones as well. Because I walked away from meetings going, that was awesome, and I was like, yeah, they ghosted me in today's vernacular, right?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, and having an investor, most investors won't. They'll say they add value, but most investors won't actually add much value. So, but not all money is good, right? All money spends 100%. The same, but not all money is good.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to know who those investors are in our region, talk to me later. Yeah.
I do the same thing in Seattle. I'm like, I'll tell you who to go to and who not to go to.
Exactly.
And I'll name names because I'm in a point in my career that I'm like, yeah, I'm totally good with that. I'm going to
as long as it didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement, I'm good. I can name names as much as I want. So.
All right. I'm going to open up to you all for questions. So feel free to either put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll have Hussein field a few more.
I think I said quite a lot. Anybody wants to ask a question, or what?
Ask away.
Or is that good? Go ahead. Just raise your hand, even like that. You don't need to raise your hand from the whole thing. Hamid. How are you?
I'm good.
Likewise, man.
Hussein, regarding the rejections, people are not used to rejections. So what's your advice? I send so many emails for meetings and no one replies, as you said. And the thing is, you just keep on going. So what do you advise for rejections?
Dude, take the slap, go away, come back 3 days later, do it again. I'll be very blunt. I think three of our current investors have rejected me at least 3 times. Good. They're invested with us. They have rejected me, but I went back 3 months later, telling them, listen, you rejected this growth. Now the value is higher, you know, put money. Let's see what to do.
I think, Dave, if I can share this step from Brian Tracy, he discovered early on in his door-to-door sales career that in every 20 clients or prospects he knocked on the door, one would say yes. So if someone tells him no, he'd be more excited because he's now doing the countdown.
Yeah, I mean,
so there's a saying that if you don't get rejected at least 100 times in the first year of your startup's life, then you're not doing your job as a CEO. So
from my first startup, I pitched 167 VCs.
Wow.
There you go.
So in collectively over my 5 startups, I've raised $12 million and exited 85. So no unicorns, awesome. All singles on the 3 exits, but
that doesn't mean it's not something amazing, dude. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So the math, though, I think that Hussein's original point is no rejection is the native state.
Yeah.
That's just it. Right. So as you go through the math, you're working your way through the math. But a no, and back to Hussein's other point, a no is also a not now. Right. So one of the things we'll talk about tomorrow is doing your monthly investor updates, because they're going to help serve that purpose of keeping them informed. Because there's great wisdom in what Hussein said earlier. If you're going up and to the right in value, you have to remember investors are motivated by greed and fear. It's good. I mean, it's pretty base level stuff, right? So greed is, this is a great deal, and fear is, I'm not going to get in this great deal. So if you give them an update and Hussein's business is going up to the right, the answer is the value just went up, and the longer you wait, the less of the company you will own, right? So creating that reason to close is super important. So, sorry, Stefan,
you have Abdullahi.
Yeah. So Monica
and Abdullahi.
Hello, Hussein.
Hi.
Okay, go. Okay. Hello, Hussein. We have in Nigeria. Okay, our product, actually really works here in Nigeria. We were at GITEX in Dubai, and I think that was when a scout from Flat6 Labs approached us, and we got the interview. So what would be your advice, okay, for us to get into? We don't know the terrain in Bahrain, so what would be your advice to us?
Well, first off, you got to do some market research. You got to understand that Bahrain is a tiny country. Excuse me. Well, it operates like a company if you think about it a bit deeply. But nevertheless, it's a small country, and you got to be able to understand whether your product is going to be able to work locally. Because in the end, Flat6 Labs and any accelerator for that matter is going to take a look at how they can help you scale your business into a region that you're not in. Now, the good thing is you're in Africa, so you have literally the MENA region is like literally next door. You just walk into it, and that's it. So you can probably try it and attempt trying it for the region in Bahrain because of the localization aspect. You got to understand how it works here to be able to scale it into the bigger players, which is Saudi, which is UAE, Egypt, Kuwait, all these big countries around the region as well. So my advice to you is, again, just focus on value. Don't worry if you get rejected into anything. It's okay. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a bad job. Your business is not doing well. It's just like Dave said. It's not now. It's just not now. That's what it is. It's going to happen somewhere down the line, a month from now, or 2 months from now, or even a year from now. But you just continue driving and adding that value. If it works very well in Nigeria, then I take it you're revenue generating. You're doing fantastic. Then focus more on Nigeria. Grow the numbers even bigger. Nigeria is not a small market at all. So and then revisit it again. That's my piece of advice. Don't take anything that comes to you personally. Yeah.
Okay. There's something we have this. They used to tell us that we have this first move advantage. Yes. That's why we want to try to replicate it in Bahrain. And you said something earlier that Bahrain is the perfect launch pad. We thought, given the opportunity, to join Flat6 Labs, we should be able to see how we can move into that market since it comes back to Africa. But thank you for the feedback. Thank you.
By all means, man. Good luck. I think we had another question.
Monica.
Monica.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Hussein. First of all, thank you for your insights. They've been pretty helpful. I just have two quick questions, right? Number one is, what do you think is, in your experience, the ideal timeline for us to go back to an investor who has previously rejected us, stating that maybe we don't have enough traction or we don't have possibly a POC underway or something of that sort. And maybe we've achieved those milestones, but it's taken some time. So what do you think is the ideal timeline to do that? And the second question is more about the kind of perspectives of the VCs in Bahrain. How important is the team and the team's experience as individuals or collectively important to the VCs? If you could just give us an insight on that.
Sure. So real quick, answering the first part. For me personally, if an investor tells me come back to me in 6 months, I chop it in half and I go back in 3 months. If an investor tells me come back to me in 3 months, again I chop it in half and I go in a month and a half or a month at least. Tell them, listen guys, you told me to come back in 3 months, but wow, look at my traction in the past month. Whatever it is, and just kind of like capitalize on the fear and greed aspect that they've just mentioned, because these guys want to see that growth. If you show them that you've grown 40% or 50% in the past month, and you're expecting to grow 40 or 50% in the coming 2 months, then when they said 3 months to you, then that could possibly mean that they're going to lose, some equity value. They're like, okay, fine. That means I'm going to own much less of this business. Let me invest now. And you tell them, listen, we still have, we can still go buy the same valuation we discussed a month ago, something like that. And then you'll just continue adding value. It's how you package it in the end. Right. It's a lot of packaging when you talk to anybody to convince them to give you money, is how you're going to show them that, hey, this is something that you should take part in. And then the second part, when it comes to the team, I think it's everything. If you don't have the right team, number one, then your team then obviously it's not going to be the right team for the startup to grow generally. So for you, the core aspect for you has to be the team. And that's you as the person that's running the company. Now, think of going to an investor and telling him that, hey, listen, invest with us. And then they're always going to ask you, tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself and your experience and your team. Why do you think it's easy for me to fundraise? I am a serial entrepreneur. I have a co-founder who's a PhD holder in computer science. I have a team member that's an actuary by trade or by education. And so they do statistics, and that's all their life. So data analysis and statistics, which is something that's required in this market, and especially in the market that we're in. I have a team member that does amazing, fantastic UI, UX, and they're all invested in the company. That's very important for you to portray. So if you have a strong team, it could be the star of the whole investment. I think there are several startups today. There's a startup I recently read about on Magnet in Pakistan. It's an e-commerce startup. I don't see any. Yeah, there you go. So exactly. So how much did they fundraise? $8 million. They don't have a product. They have a fantastic team, though, right? So you see what I'm trying to say here. So whatever it is, that's it. Yeah, tell me.
Right. The reason why I asked this question is because we're always perceived. So our team is 70% women, and we're comparatively younger than a lot of other startups that we're generally pitted against, at least in the MENA market, right? So do you think that investors are a little hesitant? Because we've seen that startups that we too had a first mover advantage in the Gen Z audience, right? And we've seen that startups that came much after us have now gotten funding, and they're kind of expanding and doubling down on marketing, and somehow that break hasn't happened for us yet. Do you possibly think that it could be an age bias maybe, or I don't know?
What was the founder of Snapchat? What was his age when he got his IPO? I think he was 21, 22, something like that. The company went public.
He was under his 25. Yeah, he was way under 25, right?
There you go. So let me put this way. Again, if your team is not as strong as you think your team should be when you approach your investors, then your product has to be amazing. Has to be unbelievable, and it has to cater to something that makes sense. So one way or the other, you got to go and make sure that whenever you pitch to an investor, the star of your pitch is basically what it is that you're selling. So it could be that you're selling the team. The team is is huge. It's fantastic, and it's one of the best teams out there. We have this experience. We have this much. Having 70% of the team being women could definitely be an advantage, especially with the way things are going now. So technically speaking, there's absolutely not a bad thing, and I don't think age is ever a barrier. If you could be 16 years old, but you have an amazing product and you're running it, and then but make sure, or not make sure, but you got to understand again, if the investor comes in and heavily invests, and at some point in the life of the business they tell you, or they want to approach you and tell you, listen, we don't think you should be the CEO, we think you should be more focused on the product, you should be chief product officer, but we need to hire a CEO. This actually might happen. Again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You'd still be the founder, you still own the product, you still own just about everything in the business. But then that's what you know, something that could be added value. Think of the investor that's investing with you as someone that's going to add value. Again, depending on who it is that you're approaching and how it is that you're approaching them. If they're going to come in and tell you stuff, then you got to listen to that advice because they're technically in bed with you. If you think, you know, if you want to.
Okay, pretty good.
Put it in words.
Look for allies and advocates, Monica, as well, because you'll find that somebody put the stat in there. In the U.S. market, 2.9% of venture goes to women. It's a tragically low number. I think 5 years ago, I would say we were talking about it, but nothing changed. I would say now we're talking about it and we're seeing some change. So a friend of mine runs the Female Founder Alliance here in the U.S. and they're just crushing it. And we're seeing great companies with great traction. But it's a combination of those things, right? So to Hussein's point, when you have traction, you're creating a fear of like, oh, I may not get in this deal, right? So the team alone without traction, or the team alone in a bad market, isn't going to get you funded, right? So it's the combination of those factors, but lean into it and like be unabashed about the fact that, hey, listen, you can't sell to this market unless you understand this market, right? I can't sell to that market. It's, you know, I'm a middle-aged white dude. What do I know about selling to the MENA market for Gen Z, right? And the answer is no.
Going back to the women thing, guys, did you see Bumble? This is an amazing step for women today. So trust me, there is room. It's a ripe time for it to actually work towards, you know, the women becoming much more funded than they used to be in a sense when it comes to startup. So please, by all means, don't think of it as a hindrance. Think of it as an opportunity if you find the right people to invest with you. So
thanks guys.
Hi Hussein, I have a question.
Hello.
So who's speaking right now?
Hello.
Go ahead, Basma.
I don't know.
Yeah. Basma?
Okay.
Tell me, Basma.
Yeah. So I just have a question. You said so many things right now for investors. So I wanted to know exactly what is exactly they're looking for. Like what strikes them, what intrigues them, you know, like is it you say team or is it the product? I'm confused because you said product and then you said team and then you said so I was like,
there's no one thing, Basma. There's no one thing. Every investor looks for something different. That's why you got to do your homework before you talk to that investor. You got to understand what that investor could potentially be interested in, and then you go and pitch to them and focus on that specific thing if you have it. Otherwise, you know, then you know, you're just going to be another startup that, you know, throw a pitch deck on their desk and they're probably going to throw it to the garbage and never talk to you again. That usually just, you know, something that we need to keep in mind. We got to do our homework before we talk to them. It's not just them that does due diligence; it's us that do due diligence as well.
Yeah, you gotta pick the right investors.
Okay, do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I was just going to add. I think that, you know, we talked about the fast 4 yesterday, right? It's team, it's market, it's traction, it's product, right? If you miss one of those and you're like, oh, I'm not getting funded, I'm like, you haven't done the work yet, like you haven't shipped a product yet, right? Or in Hussein's case, you haven't pivoted to the right market yet, right? So just because you need funding, that doesn't correlate to your ability to raise funding. And I don't mean to be overly harsh, right? But it's like those are not related. If you have momentum, people will throw money at you, right? Because they know the value's going up, right? But if you're in a crummy market and people don't like the market, they're going to be like, oh, I like the team, but poof, like Hussein's original pitch, right? We like the team, but they were in the wrong market. So you had to wait till the pivot was over.
Yeah.
Okay. Do they care about more of like the value, the value, or they care about just making money?
You're
like
looking for a
investors
silver
in
bullet.
general.
You just got to go do the meetings and do the pitches and find out. There's no secret formula here, sadly. I wish there was, because everybody
Okay.
they talk to founders like,
If
how
there
would you
was,
value it?
yeah.
As if there's a right formula to do it.
No, because I'm just saying, because sometimes investors, they just care about, okay, how much money you're going to make me, that's it. You know, they don't, they lose the essence of,
Some do.
you know, the quality, you know.
Yeah.
So that's
Sorry for interrupting you,
why I'm
Basma, but
asking.
some do. Again, that's why some will always worry about the ROI. But that's the thing. That's why you do research about them before you approach them. You got to understand what it is that, you know, interests them. That's the due diligence aspect from your end. So you're never going to know what the investor wants unless you do research. If you're not able to find it out in that research, you just got to wing it and talk to them and figure out what they want. And then if they reject you because they can't find what they want, ask for feedback, go away, reassess everything, come back in a month and a half or 2 months and pitch it again with the thing that they want in it, if you really want them to invest with you.
Okay.
You know, that's the whole process.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there was someone else that wanted to ask a question.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
Hussein.
Yeah.
What is the view on investors, on co-founders that have full-time jobs? So, for example, what do you think about what do they think about starting a startup if you have another job?
So how many co-founders are you, and how many of you have a job?
We're two and we both have jobs.
They're not going to invest with you. That's it.
Their
No other
commitment trails your commitment.
Exactly.
Right? So I've never written a check to a company who hasn't taken more risks than I am.
Yeah, 100%. That's the whole thing. If you're not fully committed to your business and you're not dedicating 100% of your effort in growing it, then how do you expect someone to give you money and dedicate, you know, himself towards it? It's going to be very difficult. So absolutely, one of the core things that you got to figure out in the beginning is which one of you as co-founders is going to focus full time. If one of you is really worried about you know, stability and whatnot, then one or the other can fund each other. One could take a full-time job, but at least one of you has to be 100% dedicated and focused only on the startup. If you are alone on the other hand, again, there's nothing wrong. Maybe your focus is not focusing on one thing. And that's what something that Gary Vee says. Dave spoke about Gary Vee a couple of times before. It could be that, but then again, if you expect the investor to invest with you, then definitely that investor, if he sees unbelievable or she sees unbelievable value in what you're doing, then they're definitely going to write a check. But the probability of them investing, if you have a full-time job, is going to be much, almost zero when it comes to, you know, you having a full-time job.
Our situation is a bit different. So we both work for family businesses and we both have flexible timings. So that slightly changes the wave.
Yeah, again, it could work for you. I'm not saying that it couldn't. It depends again who the investor is that's investing. It could be your family business investing in you. Then again, you know, that's another thing that you got to take a look at. But that's a totally different story to talk about. Just make sure that whenever an investor is going to jump in, if they're going to invest with you, they really want to see dedication. And the simplest form of dedication for a startup founder is that they're doing only their startup.
Hussein, thanks. We're going to go off and do pitch reviews. So thank you again for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
By all means, exactly. Likewise. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave.
Right.
I'll make sure to stay in touch with you at some point. So, cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Hussein.
Will do.
Bye.
All right. So pitch prep. I'm going to bring back up the Mad Libs pitch. If you don't have your deck done yet, and I don't expect you to have your deck done, and you haven't done the Mad Libs pitch in the first section, we'll start there. If you have your slides and you're down to your 10 slides, you're welcome to give that pitch. We're going to do the short version of that today. So I'm happy to do either one of them. So my request is for you, if you want to get into the queue to pitch, put your company name into the chat box, because I can follow that better than I can follow hands up. And then let's go through your Mad Libs pitch at very least and make sure that you get feedback on that today. And then as we go into tomorrow's pitches, hopefully you'll have enough of your slides done as we go into tomorrow that you can use your slides. So if you have them today, great. If you don't have them today, no expectation until tomorrow. Okay. So feel free to drop your name and company name into into the chat window, and we'll go from there. Do you guys want to take a quick 5-minute break stretch? Let's do that. All right, back in 5.
As a CEO of a web and mobile apps agency, my team is the right team because we have launched websites and mobile apps for many clients in different retail industries and have closely worked with them for more than 10 years. I would like to benefit from mentors and raise funds to make the solution become successful.
Okay. So on the problem thing, I'm going to change the order on your problem piece a little bit.
Yeah.
And probably lead with a less acronym industry lingo and more, so within the food and beverage industry. So is the problem you're solving, it's both ingredients and equipment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and obviously the COVID has made that incredibly worse. Do you think that
it was already worse?
Continue to be incredibly challenging, or do you think it'll come back, or do you think the supply chain is just broken?
It is broken.
Okay. So
yeah,
I would probably lead with that. And say the problem we're solving is that the wholesale retail supply chain for ingredients and equipment for the food and beverage industry is broken, and we figured out how broken because of COVID.
Okay.
Our company is going to fix that by allowing F&B retailers to find access to the best vendors at the right time at the best price.
Okay.
So I'd probably pitch that as your problem solution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So a little more concise and leading with the fact that, like, part of what I'm trying to help you communicate with that is that it's not just that COVID broke it. It's like it was broken before. COVID just highlighted how broken.
Okay.
And as companies come back, there's going to be a much more need for food and beverage companies, which is going to put even more stress on the system. But there's a lot more companies who are going to come back now and start over again or start new. So there's this, I'm implying there's a coming wave of new businesses that are coming. That's why our timing is really good for us to fix it. So I don't have to go into the how details of how you're going to do it in the elevator pitch. I'm just trying to get the concept of, like, ooh, that's really interesting. Like, food and beverage was broken before COVID highlighted it. These guys have figured out how to fix it. I want to learn more. So I don't have to make the whole pitch longer. I'm just trying to make that tease part of the pitch more compelling.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Skula.
Okay. So I'm going to do the Mad Lib also. I don't have a pitch deck right now.
No worries.
Okay. So hi, my name is Nasser Mustafa. My company is Skula. Around the last 12 months, schools around the world realized that they needed an alternative to the traditional teaching and learning method available. So we built a platform that allows these schools to engage with their students through gamification using content generated entirely by them. And this helped them boost engagements on online learning and increase learning of the students. So we make money by charging schools a subscription fee. And we also allow third parties to host their content on the platform. So we charge a commission from that also. Our team is the right team to do this because we've tried it in Nigeria, and over 3 million questions have been answered on our platform by students from around about 30 schools. And we need help with access to education consultants, and that will help us reach more schools in Bahrain and, of course, the MENA region at the end.
Yours is actually similar to my advice on the previous one. Like a year ago, before this started, I would never have said that ed tech could have been sexy. And now ed tech is like super hot as a category. So I would highlight the same sort of message here, which is, schools weren't super well connected, didn't bridge online and offline very well before COVID. Now the question is they're never really going to quite go back because the learning is good for the students, but they're going to take the best of offline back relationship wise, but also going to stay connected with students online. is kind of your problem solution to make that a little bit more concise.
Okay.
And then our product allows school districts to take their existing content, make it online, and then our secret sauce is how we gamify it and make it fun for
Exactly.
kids and engaging. So I
Yes.
changed the order slightly to make it
Okay.
more about I'm taking the stuff the hard stuff that's already done, which is the curriculum, bringing it online, which is the school can't do, and then making it fun through your secret sauce. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the way I'd position the product side. Target customer, I'd start off with, we started in Nigeria. The market size for that is this. We think as we move into MENA, this is why. So it's kind of the why MENA, why now question,
Okay.
right? So just tease that out a little bit. I think the making money part's great. We have 2 ways to make money. We do subscriptions to the schools. We take a commission on third-party curriculums. So again, just tighten that up a little bit. Yeah, the rest of it I think is super solid. I'm looking forward to seeing the deck.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, Corner Court.
Hi, I'm Samir Harib, co-founder of Corner Court. The problem we're solving is that amateur sports games are not being recorded and players are not able to rewatch their favorite game moments. Even parents are sometimes unable to watch their kids' game due to their busy schedules. Our product is an AI engine that can record games and automatically extract the top highlights and key moments. It's designed for court owner and pitches. We make money by charging a fee to record and process a game. And our team is the right team because we're already sports players. And secondly, we are experts in software IT industry. We need help with reaching the market in Bahrain and scale to GCC.
Super tight pitch, great improvements, right? So I think I'm not sure if I'd lead with AI versus I'd lead with the benefit to the consumer, right? Which is we're going to bring your highlights to your mobile phone. So you can show them, so your parents can see them, or you can show them to your friends. Like I'd like you to kind of bring me along to emotionally connect with that where you can, because yours is one that can be kind of an emotional connection, right?
Okay.
Hey, you can show the highlights from your game to your friends afterwards, or your parents or grandparents can see the highlights from the kids' games. Like make it something like, oh, I want to try that, versus like right now it's a little clinical. So as you move into your pitch deck narrative, I would include a little bit more of that as well.
Okay.
Good progress.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
Drive Pal.
Hi, Dave. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure. Yeah, go for it. Let me unshare mine. All right.
Anna. Okay, so I'll jump directly to the problem.
Yep.
Let me introduce you to Sarah. This is Sarah. Sarah spent a few weeks searching for a driving instructor. She searched through the official website for instructors. She asked her family and friends, and even she went to the driving school for contacting and driving instructors. When she found a few instructors, those instructors did not pick up the phone, or already fully booked, or no longer in service. Now, this is the struggle of not only Sarah, but the majority of seekers who requires driving instructors. On the other end of the spectrum, there are a number of instructors who are looking for methods to maintain their schedule booked over the year. After running interviews over 81 students, we found that over 60% of them require a platform to connect. Now, this made possible with the DriveBall platform that helps connect students with driving instructors. It's faster, simpler, easier, and an alternative to the existing offline system of driving instructors. You may wonder how it works. Well, both parties will be able to select their criteria based on the gender, location, and language. Students will be able to book sessions directly through the platform based on instructor availability and exchange information upon instructor approval. We are solving a very old traditional problem in Bahrain, and we are targeting the Bahraini market that is worth over 15 million dinar Bahraini. In 1 year period, we are planning to help over 5,000 students and hire over 50 instructors, and at the same time to complete over 1,054 hours of driving lessons, of which the total value of those sessions over 23,000 BD, of which we will take a one-time commission of 4 BD. Drive-by might shift to a different revenue model in the second and third phase. We're actually thinking of taking a commission also on the students part, but we didn't discuss it yet. So how to differentiate ourselves? So when it's released, it's assumed that Drive-by can lead the driving instructors market as it has the first mover advantage. A centralized platform. Number one, we target a very wide audience. So we cater to all Bahrainis or expats who are legally allowed to drive in Bahrain, as well as the Saudi women. We also will offer a very supportive customer service, and we are very human-centric. So we are focusing on the user, their needs and demands. We are intending to acquire students through a mixture of pull and push marketing. On the other hand, our actual direct competitors in the market would be the offline driving instructors, as we have seen self-advertised Instagram profiles or paid ads on local bloggers or journalist profiles. We want to be the first people choose in the market. Our future work is expected to modify the business plan along with the application to suit the other GCC countries. Saudi Arabia, for instance, can be a huge market with a lot of potential. Also, a collaboration with the General Director to Traffic as a future plan. Also, our business model or revenue streams model are flexible. This won't be possible without our amazing team. I come from engineering and business management background. Our passion has been always lies in helping people and making things simpler. And the same can be said about our team. Ali Kouair, for example, is our software developer, highly skilled in the technical aspect, especially in application development and operation. Sadiq, who has significant entrepreneurial and technological skills with demonstrated history of working in the work field. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Hey, great start on slides and great start on pitches. I'm gonna tweak your trajectory of your pitch slightly, but you've got the pieces there. I just want to get the most compelling pieces to the top. So a couple things. One is for everybody's benefit. You made the statement at one point. You may wonder how. Don't wonder. Make a statement. Like be strong about your. This is broken.
All right.
Testing process is broken.
All
right. So don't use soft when you can use firm language. Okay.
All right.
The other thing is I would probably position it to fix the problem. I like to compress the problem slides to a shorter problem. Like I didn't track your time, but my guess is you can get people to head nod to the problem a lot faster. So when you do the size of the market, they can't find it. So your build there is a little bit too long, right? And I'd go, anytime you have a problem slide on any one of these topics, all I'm trying to do is get the audience to nod their head and agree with me, right? And then I move on to the next slide. So up front, I would talk about we surveyed this and here's the problem. I would jump ahead there and say, you know what, student drivers want to be communicated with the way they're used to being communicated with, which is not calling and waiting on hold and waiting for people at driving schools to call them back. They want to do a text message. Like if I were you, I'd look at Twilio as a way to do text integration and text messaging for scheduling, right? Because all of my kids have domains with email on my domain for DK Parker. All of them use text and mobile, right? None of them, everybody's like, oh, email. Yeah, I should check that once in a while, right? So think about it as positioning as, listen, as a customer set, they want to buy the way they're used to buying, which is over mobile and fast, right? Not calling and scheduling and all that kind of stuff. You were a little around how you're going to make money, and I know this is a hypothesis at this point, but I think you can charge for both, right? A percentage of commission on the order with the is it a driving school or is it a driving instructor, or can you do both?
Actually, the driving instructors, because it's a semi-governmental, so they're working as a freelancer, and the students actually will visit our.
So you're bringing the gig economy to driving instructors.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I'd probably say something like that.
And
Like
we
we're
have
bringing the gig economy to driving instructors because do you have to be registered to be a driving instructor?
there is a certain criteria, and one thing, we have only one driving instructor in Bahrain, so it's quite different. Like every country in the GCC has a different system when it comes to driving instructors.
Okay. So I would tease out a little bit of that because that's a bit of your secret sauce. Like we know how to do this because every country in GCC has different rules for driving instructors. We figured that out, and we're going to use what we know about that to help find new drivers or new driving instructors that can make money as a driving instructor, right? Because there's people I've driven with who should never be driving instructors, so that you're bringing up, you need to both answer that question and bring up that question at the same time. And then the question is, are you going to manage the payments process?
That's the thing. We have also issues about that. We're thinking about taking one-time commission from the instructor from the first session. That's from the instructor.
So I think one of the things you're going to find is you're going to have to manage the financial transactions, because
No, actually we're not allowed from a legal.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
we're not.
So one of the challenges you'll face then is if you introduce a student to me, then I can take the payment directly and cut you out of the process. So just be aware that that's going to be a risk factor you're going to have to address and think about.
No, it's also, we can track it because legally they are committed to continue with this driving instructor for 22 sessions, unless they have, when they want to change the driving instructor, they have to go to the driving school and change it.
Got it. So,
yes.
So think about how you tell that part of the story, because that's part of your secret sauce, right? Of how you get paid. So, but overall, pitches come in the right direction, shorten up the total time on the problem, because it'll give you more time to explain your product, your solution, and how you're going to make money, which is more because people will get your problem fairly quick. So take the time you spent on the problem down to half, right? It'll give you more time to talk about product and how you make money. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Finlicht. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Okay, so I actually have my deck ready, but I'm not able to share it. So maybe I'll pitch with the deck tomorrow.
Yeah.
For now,
For now.
Yeah, just the flow. Okay, cool. So cool, I'll start.
I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah.
I had to take back control. I have control issues anyway.
Okay, great. So should I begin?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Monica and I'm the CEO of Finlect. Finlect is a financial wellness app for Gen Zs to build credit, pre-qualify for financial products, and automate their expenses. Well, the world of banking has dramatically changed. Banks have great infrastructure, technology, and even the best people. Still, 1/3 of the MENA's population is unbanked. These are individuals who are financially active, eligible for financial products, and actually want better services. Unfortunately, they do not fit the age-old qualification boxes set up by banks and credit bureaus. In addition to this, the existing solutions are far too overwhelming and complex. And all of this, coupled with the significant lack of financial literacy, is the reason why MENA's largest demographic is still out of the ecosystem. But what if we build a bridge between Gen Zs and banks and make them more creditworthy? Well, that's what we do at Finlect. We enable the next generation of consumers to become more creditworthy. The app enables its users to build credit, to pre-qualify for the right financial products, categorize and manage their finances better, and learn using our bite-sized financial content feature. Banking 300 million Gen Zs in the MENA region is an $80 billion market. This includes their individual spending power, the influence that they have on family spending, and the total amount of money that companies are spending to acquire Gen Zs. Our launch market, which was UAE, alone has over 1.4 million Gen Zs. So our secret sauce, or X factor, is our singular focus on solving the financial needs of this specific target market, and a holistic approach in combining smart financial tools and content, and using that to build, monitor, and boost an individual's credit score. We basically make money by charging banks. We charge them a setup and recurring license fee for our credit scoring feature, and a monthly fee with a percentage commission for each product that our users are pre-qualified for. So we're basically looking to become the one-stop shop for financial wellness within this demographic, And moving forward, we're scaling up our pre-qualifications within the app and introducing a virtual card for Gen Zs to make payments and boost their credit score while they're at it. All of our tech design and content has been built in-house, and we're a full-time team of 6 people. Our team has over 25 plus years of experience in working within the financial services sector with financial institutions and for fintechs. But most importantly, our team also has 25 plus years on average in experience of not having access to the right financial products at the right time. And this is precisely what makes us best positioned to solve this problem. With this program, we're looking to get support with reaching out to strategic investors to fast track our fundraising process. In addition to this, to get access to banks and other mentors that can support our products entry into the Bahrain market. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that was a nice deliberate expansion of the Mad Libs pitch. So actually, really good job. So a couple things I'd like you to just be a little crisper on about how you explain it. So talk about near-term revenue and long-term revenue, and just separate those out early in your process, Monica, so that they understand. We're going to be the credit score for Gen Z, and we're going to own this space. But in the short term, we're going to make money by creating new customers for banks, and then helping the banks create new financial products, because banks are so slow to respond to stuff. Like one of my biggest misses was, have you followed Brex? Do you know Brex in the US market?
No.
So BREX is the name. So they were a YC company that.
Oh yes, Brex. Yeah. Okay.
So
yes.
When I was with Startup Weekend, Chase Bank was one of our sponsors. And I literally sat with the president of the Chase card division, trying to convince them that they should do a card for startups. What I should have been doing is creating my own card for startups, because Brex did it like 4 years later. Right. So it was kind of one of those, like categories, right? Now, whether I could have pulled it off or not, there's execution risk and all those things involved. But my point here for you is that, we think we can create our own credit card. We think we're going to partner with a bank. Like, tell me the short-term to long-term story of how you get there, because that will help your investor understand, okay, it's not going to take you 5 years to do it and $50 million. Like, you can do it like in this year, here's what you can do. And then over 3 years, you're going to be the credit scorer. You're going to own the credit card market for this customer for a lifetime with a partner bank. Like, tell me that short-term, long-term story. Also, you made the comment of, the what if versus just make a statement. So I would just keep with the thought of no rhetorical questions, just make the statement. That'll keep it a little bit crisper. When you got back to the team at the end, you kind of went back to the problem again, and we're personally experienced this problem. I'd rather use that personal experience of the problem to connect to the audience at the front. And because it feels like in a 5-minute pitch, you don't have time to recycle any content.
Okay.
So I would put it up in my name, and I'm actually I've actually experienced this problem that I've experienced, and our entire team has over the time of their adult life, which is we're underbanked because the banks don't relate to us because of this reason, right? And my company blah is doing this, right? So just change the order on that a little bit so you don't have to recycle it at the end.
Okay, great.
And you had this written out, correct? You've written out this as a narrative?
Yes. After many iterations, finally have it written down now.
Yep. I can tell. I commend you for doing it. And for the dudes on the call who haven't written it out, please write it out. It will serve you well, right? So, because especially when you're doing a 5-minute pitch. All right, Swish is next. Good job on that one.
Thanks.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Hi. Yeah. So I don't have the slides ready as well, but I'll just do my quick 5-minute elevator pitch, I guess.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. So my name is Kojak, and my company is Swish. Swish is a live streaming service that allows influencers to promote brand products by hosting their own live streams for customers. So our solution is developed with a mobile-first design in mind to ensure that users enjoy the best experience wherever they are. And during the shopping experience with Swish, you can watch and directly interact with the influencer through the live stream to get all your answers answered and stuff like that. Not only that, but we also have a subscription model, so you can also subscribe to your favorite influencer and become part of their communities. Having fun is a big part of Swish, so we want to make the shopping experience more fun, the online shopping experience more fun. So this adds as much a much needed human touch to the conventional online shopping experience. We make money from different numbers of ways, but mainly we have a commission-based model and a subscription-based model. Our team is well suited to build this company because of our diverse expertise. So we have someone who has managerial background, another in financial background, and the other guy is a tech guy. Third founder is a tech founder. In order to accelerate our success, what we are seeking, we are basically seeking additional funds to cover our initial development and streaming costs until our revenues are strong enough to cover these. Last but not least, we understand the value of experience, and hopefully with your initial mentorship and guidance, we will ensure long-term success.
Right.
Thank you.
So good job on the pitch. I love the direction. A couple of things that struck me as different than I expected it to be. When you started down the streaming angle, I get streaming, connecting you with the community, connecting you with influencers and players, but you used the word shopping, and I was like, shopping? Like, am I buying merch? So the workflow didn't, or the language didn't fit the workflow I was thinking of. So is it that I'm going to use your platform to connect with the people I want to watch on Twitch?
No,
Like,
so yeah. So what it is it's an e-commerce platform, but it's a live streaming e-commerce platform. So it's like a combination of QVC and Twitch. What you do is it's a platform where you can go online and you can watch streamers promote products that you can purchase.
Got it. So give me an example in your pitch.
Okay, so an example would be if I'm an influencer, I can stream and I can try to sell, for example, Adidas products to my followers, and I get a commission per sale.
So give me a tangible example.
What do you mean?
Well, if I'm the streamer, what product am I going to sell? Am I selling the game access? Am I selling merch? Am I selling a subscription to something? Like, what am I?
Yeah, so what you're selling? You're selling products of vendors that are on our platform, and we're mainly focusing on the fashion and beauty industry in the beginning.
Okay, so lead with that example of so for everybody's benefit, when you give a customer example, give the same customer example throughout your pitch, right? Because in a 5-minute pitch, you can't talk about 4 customer examples, so you need to pick an example. So if it's health and beauty products or fitness products or whatever it is that you want you see the increase in sales. So then give me a real example of, so Dave's a streamer. I'm a bad example, right? But this particular person is a streamer and they're connected with this product line. While they're streaming, they have a chance to promote this particular, but I want to have you be specific. Right now, it's a little abstract.
Okay.
And I want you to move from abstract to land it. And to land it, you have to say, she's going to be selling health and beauty products, and where the average sales price is this, and she can promote it within the stream, and right. So make it super tangible, and the average sale in that particular thing is $30, and her commission is this, and our split on that is this. Like, make it, because I don't know if you're that far along in your product yet, but what you're selling here is the idea of like, oh, that's an interesting concept. Will that concept work? Right. And the more concrete you can be with the example, the better it will be up front to have people go, because you're not really solving a problem here, other than streamers don't get paid well, right, for what they do at an actual conversion number. And you're saying we can fix that problem, connect the streaming activity and live stream activity, whether it's this thing, but give an example too. If it's health and beauty, when I think of streamers, I think of gamers, right? But if you do health and beauty and gamers, those two things don't necessarily go along.
Yeah, it's true.
right? So pick an example that you think is closest to the first use case you would use. And then you can say, we're basically connecting QVC with Twitch, right? But give the tangible example first, and then give me the bigger market example and blow up the idea where I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting idea. No one's done that before. So do I think they're the right team to do it, which gets you into the rest of the pitch? So I'm changing the order of things a little bit, Kojak, to make it a little bit more, in your head, it's clear, like all of us as founders, it's always clear to us.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
I have just a follow-up question is, you've mentioned before that, for example, that gaming company, the only problem they solved was boredom, right? Okay, so here we're basically making the experience a little bit better, we're making it more entertaining, but we're not really solving an ultimate problem. So we're just making it better. Let's say for the influencer, we're getting basically the vendors will have higher sales through our platform, all this stuff, but it's just making things better.
Yeah,
not
I
specifically
think
solving
the problem you're solving is giving the influencer access to monetize their streams.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's the problem you're solving. Like the thing you're solving from a boredom perspective is I want to go watch somebody stream something because it's entertaining. But while I'm there, I'm super curious about, you're making right now on Instagram, they promote a product, but you don't know what the correlation is between that activity and actual conversion. You guys are making that more real time, correct?
So other than that, basically, we're solving different problems for each person. So for the user or for the customer, a lot of them have issues. A lot of people have issues with the online shopping in specific, especially for example for makeup products. The colors are not the same that you see on the website as they are in real life. So for example, a lot of people would prefer to be on site and see how the colors are compared to their skin color or stuff like that. Same thing with fashion. A lot of them prefer to actually wear it than see a picture of it because it doesn't look the same. So we're trying to solve that with the live stream. So for an influencer, they can show the actual colors, they can actually wear it, so you can interact with them, you can see how many, for example, you can ask that person, how many zippers does this bag have? Can you show it to me from inside or from the bottom instead of just, so there's that.
I totally get it. So, but be careful, pick the use case you think will be both the most profitable and most interesting, and stick to that single use case. And then somebody says, well, you could use it with this use case too. And you're like, of course you could. Or I could use it with that use case, or I could use it with a car, or I could use it with, any product that an influencer wants to explore. But use the use case to kind of land the topic first, because if you don't land the topic, people will walk away going, I'm kind of confused by that one.
Yeah.
So land the use case first, and then let them expand on it. Make sense?
Appreciate it. Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
By the way, even if I spent all my time during COVID growing my beer out like that, dude, I couldn't have got my beer to do that. That's super awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It
took 3 years and a half.
Below my mask, but I was like, at that point, I was like, I got to shave it. So, all right. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah, good job. Nice pitch.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tender Hub.
Yeah, my name is Adil Ali, co-founder of the Tender Hub, an e-tendering portal that facilitates the tendering process from the advertisement of requirements to the awarding of bids. The problem we're trying to resolve is the inefficiency of procurement practices in private sector markets. Through a digital framework, our portal enables users to automate the process of managing tenders and awarding bids. We make money through annual subscriptions. Our team consists of me and Hassan. We are the right team because we have experience in the various industries of Kingdom of Bahrain's market. We require help in launching our product and to raise funding.
Great. Yeah, super crisp pitch. I think come along as well. One thing for everybody's benefit, as Yoda said, there is no try, there is only do. So don't try to solve the problem, solve it. Right. Okay. And come in with a level of conviction of, we're solving the problem of this. Right. So for everybody.
iPhone.
About you on mute, please.
I'm just listening.
All right. So good solid pitch. Way to tighten it up. All right. Who's next? So Dana Trex.
Dave, can I share my slides?
Yeah.
They're not final, but at least they are work in progress.
Yeah. Let me stop sharing, and you got it. So go for it.
Okay, do you see my slide?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're Dana Tracks. We enable stakeholders to track pearls, buy them, and sell them. And we will be based out of Bahrain because Bahrain is the historical capital of pearling industry in the whole world. So there is a big problem in the pearling industry. It's an age-old industry that haven't changed a bit since the inception of pearl harvesting from the bottom of the sea. So we want to change that because there are so many efficiencies in the market. And what we want to do is to create a solution that enables all the stakeholders to track the pearls in terms of the origin, and help the regulators and logistics and retailers to make sure they buy the right pearls from the right sources. And this is our market opportunity. Globally, it's 1.2 billion US. We have two stages in our mind for the startup. First, we will focus on Bahrain, UAE, and Kuwait, and then we will go to Australia and New Zealand. And the reason for doing that is that my two co-founders are based in Sydney. So I'll be tackling the Gulf, they'll be tackling Australia and New Zealand. Why now? Because consumers are more aware about ethical buying habits. They want to buy from the right source. They want to make sure they are buying the thing they are buying, which is pearls. They don't want to buy fake pearls, and that's what we want to do. And that's what we want to do in our solution. Now, we have thought of a blockchain-based solution to enable the stakeholder to interact in this critical market. For example, you can see insurance companies. Insurance companies have been suffering from frauds in terms of claims, and we want to help them resolving these issues. Do we have competitors? Yes, we have. Our main competitor is Everledger. It's a same company that provides tracking services, but only for diamonds. They did not touch diamonds, pearls, I mean. And if someone says that they will jump on us, I say no. They don't have the knowledge of our market, and they don't have the access to our market. For example, the Al Fardan family is only 100 meters away from my house, so I can go and ring their doorbell and sit with them and chat about pearls. So Everledger does not have access to that. What's our revenue model? We will charge onboarding fees for the jewelers. We will charge them annual fees, and we will take commission from the marketplace that we will create for them. And this is our team. Myself, Mohamed Isa, I'm an ex-investment banker. Nakib is identified as a global talent in the blockchain technology, and that's why he got a visa to go and migrate to Australia. Faizan is an IBM veteran in blockchain, and this is the initial team. What's our ask? We need you to help us finding the right partners and the customers so that we firm up our product.
Okay. Awesome. Go back to slide 1 for me, the supply chain one. So a couple things here. So you've forgotten more about the pro market than I'll ever know. So I need you to bring me along in that process, right? So Dana Tracks allow you to track and buy high value pearls, because I imagine there's high value and low value pearls.
Yes.
So educate me along that trajectory as you go. Like there's high value pearls, things like, right? And so give me a little bit of education in the pearl market as you go through the process, because it'll help you pull me along in the story narrative, where otherwise I'm going to be like, I think there must be high and low value, but I don't know how to think about them. So hit the next slide for me. So here you talk about source. So I thought you were going to go one way about the size of the diamond, but and then you go into sourcing of the diamond, and it's changed, or diamond to pearl, but it's changed, very little has changed. This slide is super busy, and I'm not sure, like every slide should have, you should walk away going, what's the one thing on this slide that you want me to get?
Sure.
So this slide and the next slide is kind of the workflow slide.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to come back and rethink this one as like, because part of me, I looked at this one, I went, oh, this is the problem. It's a super disparate supply chain with lack of continuity, and right. But then I was like, oh no, the headline says it's the solution. So now I'm like, oh my God, where in this supply chain are they going to attack first? Because there's so many areas you could attack, right? So it left me a little confused with like, where are you starting, right? So I'd like you to pick one problem that you think is the most compelling problem in the previous slide, and then tell me why it's a compelling problem, and then say, and by the way, this is only one part of a super fragmented supply chain that has, people pulling up oysters off the bottom and finding it, all the way through regulatory and customer tracking, which kind of sets up the narrative for why blockchain will matter. I would not put in an architecture slide, however. I would more make it a layman's language piece.
This one?
Yep. So, and think of it there as it allows us to track the sourcing back to the boat, or back to the individual, all the way through who's stringing the pearls into a piece of jewelry, through who's insuring it. Like, tell me that story instead of giving me an architecture slide. All of us are technologists, love the fact that we have an architecture slide, but that should be in a supporting slide, not in your 10 slides.
How about this one, Dave?
I think it's okay when you do the pitch, but I would spend less time on it. We've seen this already taking place with Everledger for tracking, I'm missing the right word for what the source of the diamond is, right? Non-blood diamonds is what I was thinking, but it's like, it's not sustainability sourced, but it's like ethically sourced. So I would spend time on that one and say, this has already happened in the diamond business, but nobody's happened in the pearl business. Of the pearl business, the top 20% of pearls have the average price of X, right? So like, connect for me why the pearl business is like the diamond business, because in the top 20% of pearls, they have the value that's 50% of the average diamond price, or something like that. Like, connect those two dots for me. And then the other ones, I would be like, all these others are really just focused on different industries, but nobody's doing it for the high value pearl market. But again, it's about stressing the high value pearl market versus the all pearl market. So good start, right? And I think the revenue model is fine, the team piece is fine. I'm a little squishy on like Australia, New Zealand next. Like, is it because that's where I got the visa to, or is it because it's actually there's lots of buyers in that market?
It's a big market, yeah.
Okay, so make it more about he's not there because he got the visa there. He's there because it's a fast growing market for high value pearls, and then from there we'll launch to the rest of the world. So that tells that story, connects the dots a little bit better.
Do you want me to add that we're going in stage 3, we're going to Indonesia? Do you want me to go to that level? If you want to
look at your timing slide, it could be we're launching here because we know these markets, we're launching in this market because we know these markets, and then we'll look at rest of the world. I don't think you have to be that specific as to where you're going next. I think you're going to learn a lot in the first 2 markets and then be like, oh, this will work in other places. So I would probably approach it that way.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, good progress. All right, Mama's next.
Hey, I just wanted to do the extended pitch, if that's okay. So not the full deck. I'm just finishing off my deck. So hi, I'm Samaya. I'm the co-founder of Mama ME. We've all been around someone who we love that has become a mother. The transition for all mothers is isolating and overwhelming. That was exactly the same for me, and super unpredictable, because my daughter was born on the way to the hospital in an Uber. 80% of mothers suffer from baby blues and more than 15% suffer from postnatal depression. Our mobile app is designed to target our customer, who is millennial moms in the MENA region. We support every mother by helping moms find their tribe. We launched our MVP at the height of the pandemic and have made over 30 iterations with the app. With Mama 2.0 launching this week, we are very excited by what will happen in the coming weeks. We are the right team as we have an experienced product person and marketing person on board. I'm a dentist of 9 years and able to figure pretty much everything out. I need help with connecting with other mentors and access to the Flat6 Labs network.
Awesome. I think it's a tight pitch. Couple things. So give me the URL. What's the? So I heard you say Mama Me. And Mama 2.0.
Yeah, so we're working on, and I was actually going to ask you, I mean, I know everyone's on the call right now, but I think we need to change our name, because what we struggled with was finding a domain that wasn't taken with the social media names, and all of that kind of is all quite confusing. So I'm working on finding, and also working on a word that isn't so just Mama, because at some point I think this could potentially, like Bumble went beyond just connecting for dating. I think there's some opportunity to connect like women with other women, etc. So I don't want to limit it to that. So we're working on other names right now. And I think with Mama 2.0 launching this week, it's a good time to tie it in.
Yeah, I agree with you. So the challenge I ran into, so all founders, when we're doing our pitches, tend to say the company name super fast. And then the challenge with that is that when I go back and actually try to pull it up, right, I'm like, oh, it's not, and it's so generic as a title versus descriptive that it'll be super hard to index on a search engine optimization, right? So finding something.
So I'm kind of going with like a made up word.
That's fine. Yeah, as long as it's
I'm working on it
to spell, right? So I can type it in while you're, while I'm listening to your pitch. I'm like, oh, I want to see the app. What does it look like? So definitely work on nailing that, or let them know that we're still working on naming, so we can have both a domain, an appropriate domain name, and appropriate social media. So that'll be helpful, because the problem otherwise is I'm stuck back at your name and thinking about like, what was the name again? And you've moved on to your next piece of the slide, and I'm like, now I'm behind, right? So you don't necessarily have to nail it, but you could come up, and if you don't have a name you're happy with by Monday, I would say, I would go with Mama 2.0, right? Just because, and then stick with that as the naming. And just have fun with it and let people know. We'll probably go back and change it because we have concerns about people finding us. But that way you can downplay the name, and people don't get lost in the dialogue.
Sure. I mean, the name definitely needs to be changed, because that's been like customer feedback as well.
Yeah, I think helping them find their tribe and connect with their community, helping them find right products, helping them find right services, begins to tell the story of like, will we charge a transaction fee? We think some subset of our customers will charge a subscription, right? Because they have access to a different level of features, like you found in the others. I think it's okay to bring up too that like we're following a path that this other company's already trodden, but it has to be culturally relevant and within MENA. I think I'd go ahead and land that point, because then if somebody's not familiar with that, especially because there'll be dudes on the panel too that aren't moms, right? Yeah. And they theoretically they get the concept you're talking about, but if you land it with the fact that, by the way, we're following a roadmap of a company in the West who's already done this and raised $20 million, you'll get their attention, even though they don't understand the particular problem you're solving.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I will work on my full deck, and then I think we're doing pitches tomorrow anyway, right?
We'll start tomorrow, and we'll do them Wednesday as well. Awesome. Good job. Who's next?
Thank you.
Nobody's in the chat queue. So
shall I go in?
Yeah, drop your name, drop the company name into the chat queues, just so I make sure we get to everybody. Everybody who wants to pitch today. You don't have to pitch today, but I always think if you have a chance, you should. NFS app mental health next on the iPad for the win.
Hi, my name is Besma Kazaroni, and my company's name is Nefs, as in Arabic means well-being. It's a mental health app. We have had a soft launch recently in January. Our product is right now is for people to able to find a qualified practitioners in Bahrain and the GCC, other than Bahrain and GCC, and easily to, rather than going through the Google or to go to take their time to go to moms in Bahrain and ask their questions and actually keep and going through all these comments of people. Some people comments can be rude in Facebook. So this would be just a one touch away from your finger and finding what you exactly need for, and able to do your immediate appointments by one click of a button. It's as well as has designed for all kinds of our customers, for all our audiences, everyone, pretty much schools, universities, mothers, parents, students, and so forward. Because a lot of parents sometimes when schools, they do give them, let's say, for example, a school does tell the parent that you need to go to a therapist to get the child diagnosed, or so on. Parents do not know where to go to, or even teachers where to refer them. So the app is a phenomenal way of also for schools and university to give this to parents and as well students to look for what they're needing. At the same time, in this app, there is also a domestic help hotline, which helps and will give people who are going through domestic violence or any other sort of violence, they can go through the app and find the domestic help hotline immediately, rather than again going and searching.
I'm going to hit pause
Sorry.
for you real quick there.
Sorry.
So,
okay. Am I going too much?
Yes. So.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
So too much on the Mad Libs pitch, but also if you do this on the pitch for finals, I'll end up lost, right?
Okay.
So if you're doing an app that's focused on mental health, and then you got me into schools, and then you got me into domestic violence, and then I'm like, I thought I knew what you were doing, but now I'm kind of confused about what you're doing. So if you want to tell more than the Mad Libs pitch version, the deck will help you do that. But tease that out in product roadmap. And also, I want to tell me the positive story arc versus in Facebook, they can be rude. It's a little, you've got lots of data points in your head, and I want you to write up your story narrative. So you stay tight on it, because otherwise your 5-minute pitch will be a 10-minute pitch, and people will they're going to stop you at 5 minutes. Kind of the way we used to do it at Startup Weekends. When you hit the 5-minute mark, we're gonna be like, woohoo! And you're like, yeah, but I'm on slide 2 or 3, right? And I want to help you stop that direction before I don't want to enable it, right? I want to be conscious of the fact
No, I get it.
And then you can expand it out in the Q&A and talk about, oh yeah, the next market we're going to is domestic violence, or if you feel like that's the most important one because it's the most pressing, then lead with that. Right, but that's why I wanted to stop you in the middle and kind of just go, okay, I need to be tightened up. So, because the school's not your customer, I think it's going to be parent first as your customer. So then the question I want to answer around that story arc is, how do the parents find your app? Right. Mm-hmm. So is it just through search? Because you said on Google search or on Facebook. So if you're building an app in the App Store, right, and there's 1.5 million apps, how do I as a parent find your app?
So this is where it is. That's the big beauty about it, because schools right now are going to, which we have already in schools. I have done a couple of presentation seminars about the app. So the schools were, and leaflets and brochures. So they're already telling parents about it, and there are big banners about it. On top of it, also social media. It's gone constant.
So let me go back.
For example,
don't use on top of it. Land one piece at a time here for me. So so my go-to-market strategy is we're doing seminars within schools within Bahrain, which is producing great referrals for parents to come download our app. In addition to that, we're continuing to test that messaging on social media. So what I'm after is I'm trying to connect right now I've got a bunch of pieces I want to connect into a story arc, right? And you can definitely have that story arc. So just make that part of, instead of being another feature, make it part of that's part of my go-to-market strategy, is we're doing seminars. The seminars are leading to downloads. The downloads are leading to use, right? So connect those dots for me. And I know, again, as founders, they're always connected in our heads, and occasionally we connect them for the audience, right? So that'll help add some structure for you.
Okay, I will. Don't worry, I have my ABA form of making it 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I believe you get there. But
we use timers. We always use timers. So I will use all the kind of timers to make sure I get it all narrowed down and have my pinpoints. It's just right now me just talking just without my notes and just speaking broadly at this moment.
I totally get it, right? But you've forgotten more about this market than we know. So getting it down to a story narrative will be super helpful.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Who's next? I don't see any more companies that want to pitch in the chat window. You're welcome to pitch today. You're welcome to go work on your slides and pitch your slides tomorrow. I see head nods to that. Like, Dave, I'm done. Let me go work on my slides and leave me alone.
Did Manama Souk pitch?
I'm listening to you and working on the slides, so double function.
You're multitasking. Salah, did you have something to say?
Yeah, did Manama Souk pitch?
I have not.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here. Manama.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, just I'm writing something. Just give me a little time, please.
So you'll do it tomorrow with slides.
Okay. No problem.
Unless somebody else is ready to pitch. All right. Salah, do you have an idea you want to pitch?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Salah and I are working on a new startup. We haven't announced it yet. We're in stealth mode. Because we haven't decided what we're going to do.
Yeah. If you guys need any kind of help, you can just go onto our Flat6 Labs Bahrain YouTube channel. You'll see we've got everybody's pitch up there, 44 different pitches from startups, and it should give you an idea of how you present.
Awesome. All right, last chance. You're going to go work on your slides. You can get a sense of what your deliverables are today. They're on your list on that spreadsheet. I'll post the videos from today as well. And you guys were able to download the slides as well, or was it just you could just view them and not download them, or was it both?
Can I go now?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to use the Mad Libs pitch? All right.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Yeah, of course. Go for it.
I am Ahmed Al Madhoub, and my company name is Souk Al Manama, but we are doing business as manama.market. It's our domain, manama.market. The problem I'm solving is the high cost and long shipping time. We have latency in importing goods and different products, especially from China and the Far East to the Middle East. Everyone dealing with e-commerce and even normal customers and businesses, they know this very well. We are facing high costs and latency, huge, maybe more than 1 or 2 months to receive something from China, even before the pandemic. But after the pandemic, we have discovered it's a huge problem. So we are trying to solve it through our main product. We call it Importelligent. It's a B2B SaaS solution to give insights through using big data to importers and distributors in the region, so they know what to import based on the re-export model. The re-export model, if you heard about it, is like you import and store, then re-export. So you have the products here in the region. We have for all the GCC, especially because we have agreements and customs and taxes and like that. But for all the region, we are trying to
يا اخي ابعت لنا ال لك اياها والله ابو محمد هيني بجهز لك اياها انا اذا ما بعت انا حنزل لك
Love having that control. Please continue.
Okay. So we are doing like a logistic hub, a regional logistic hub based in Bahrain. Historically, Bahrain was a logistic hub for the region from ancient ages, maybe between the Indus Valley and Mesopotamia. Since in the modern history, Bahrain has the first modern airport in the region. Bahrain has the first seaport, the first modern seaport, the first oil well, and a lot of things makes Bahrain as central.
Let me pause here for you on that. So you're going to be a re-importer. So I want to kind of recast your message, because as you go into airports and oil, I'm lost, right? So,
No, we are just providing the system, the solution. We are software developers.
So
we provide.
Great.
Yeah.
So
we are trying to build an ecosystem, but using our software, and we have already customers there in the market.
Great. So I would come back and pitch it that way, is like the pandemic has highlighted an area that was basically broken before and has shown us where it's worse. We're building software that allows us to do the re-export business, however you want to phrase it. There's a bunch of pieces in there that totally work, but then as you got off to oil and gas, I'm like, is that a different problem you're solving, or is that a different?
No, that's just a thing. I'm sorry, that's saying because oil and gas, I mean it's just adding, because it's a very strategic location. I mean, Bahrain, why we don't go to Dubai? Because I think we have many things here make it a better choice to take Bahrain as a regional hub for logistics.
Let me go back to what I told one of the earlier teams, is pick in the streaming commerce example that we were talking about, pick the use case that you think represents the biggest market opportunity and the fastest to close. So if it's re-importing medical, or whichever the vertical market is, like land that. And then when Salah says, well, could you go to other markets too? You're like, well, of course we could go to the drug market or the medical device market, but pick a market you think is going to be your fastest market to use your product. Because that'll help me understand something that otherwise will be abstract, and make it really land it, which is super important in a 5-minute pitch.
Yeah. So you are asking me to give examples for.
Yeah. So I mean, you know the concept level of what you're working on and what the software will do. I want you to make it easy for the committee to understand. Oh, this software is going to empower. It allow us to get product to market a lot faster. Latency is a word I get because I'm in the industry, but some people will be like, speed, slow. Like a friend of mine runs a bicycle company, and their average cost of shipping went from $3,500 a container to $9,000 a container, right? In the last year. It's crazy. So the difference is that statement lets people go like, oh, I get it. So I want to move from like a concept to an example. So for example, importing medical devices, or importing pharma and drugs for diabetes. Like our software will allow you to shorten the time it takes to get those things in, and then use Bahrain as a location to re-export those to other countries in the region. because we can predict the need, the time and the delay, and what products you should be buying and when you should be getting them. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's mainly the main value proposition when we're depending on data analytics and providing. We are dealing with and in connection with about 20 companies here in Bahrain. They are doing Greek export, but they have some fears of what to import.
Right.
They don't know what to import, but if we give them big data and we give them the solution to empower their situation in the market, so we will more encouraged to import what we need for the region, actually.
You'll give them
to make profit for them.
Right. So they can actually use it to have unique insights to actually make decisions, right? So again, I think it's just it's nailing the use case as an example. But again, I want the use case to be a big enough market that people are like, that's a big market, right? And it'll have an impact on the region. Because then they can say, oh, it'll also work in this market and that market, right? So you have that kind of what's the next market you go to and the next market you go to. Narrow down the first example, because it'll help people understand the technology that you're putting behind it. That'll be a place to start. Okay.
Yeah.
I think one of the most difficult things that you're going to face is really clearly communicating your value proposition. I don't know if everyone got this clearly, but actually what he's trying to do is he's trying to create a quick form of digitizing and bringing online retailers in the GCC. So he's actually got two solutions. So one is the B2C, which is him trying to create an online e-commerce solution SaaS platform that creates the analytics off of that. And then he wants to tie in the B2B sector where he would be able to sort of supply them with those analytics off of the SaaS solution that he's already onboarded all these B2C retailers on, and sell that data, or I guess somehow create value out of that data to the B2B and tie it into a logistics business. And so it's B2B to C is pretty complicated, and I still feel like he hasn't explained it to me or to you.
I will explain
yourself
it.
about having a pitch. You did have a pitch. It was right there.
Mm.
It's closer. So I can work on writing that up as a narrative arc with an example, and then we'll work on it again tomorrow with your slides. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Just to explain it in one word. Importelligent, our product, is answering or giving the answer to B2B distributors what to import based on artificial intelligence and data analytics. So it's Importelligent, what to import. We are intelligently telling you artificially intelligent way to what to import in the region and to re-export it after that. Using system, we are software developers, no more than nothing more. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, well, first time for the pitch, so you got to start somewhere. All right, paper move.
Hi, I'm Talal, the co-founder of PaperMove. The problem we are solving here is imagine like you want to order business cards for an event. You'll need to search for printers, designers, send your artwork via WhatsApp or email, and the list goes on and on. At PaperMove, we make the whole journey easy and fun. We make money by charging a transaction fees, a percentage on the sales, and our team is the right team because we already have a startup in Saudi called Shoka. Shoka is a food delivery business, and we've been in the business since 2016, and it's licensed by CITC in Saudi Arabia. I'm the co-founder. I have more than 20 years experience in the IT business. We have, and my partner, the co-founder Hussam, he is the CEO and the co-founder of Shoka, our food delivery business. And we need help with the market introductions and acquiring new clients in the MENA region, in Saudi and the MENA region.
Got it. So I'm a little mixed on, like, I like the fact that you have other startup experience. I'm a little mixed on, are you guys currently working on this new idea full-time, or are you working on both ideas?
Myself full-time, yes.
Okay.
My partner is a part-time.
So I would probably say I met my co-founder in our first startup, but I'm working on this startup full-time. Because otherwise I get kind of confused with, like, ooh, are you working on two things? Did you sell that thing? Is somebody else running that thing? Right. So just be clear there about what your involvement is, which I think that'll be helpful. I tease out a little bit about how big the market is and the problem you're solving. Because the question then becomes is, are you solving it for small and medium businesses? Or are you solving it for corporations? Are you solving it for big enterprises? And so what's your, I know we talked about your average transaction being a couple $100. What do you think, is it for retailers, or who do you think your first customer will be?
So we are, our target market is startups and home business owners and individuals at the beginning.
Okay.
The market size, the printing market size in the MENA region, it's about $7 billion. Okay. And this is our market actually in Saudi and the MENA region.
Got it. So I probably not list startups as your target market, because you all know that startups don't have any money to spend, right? So I think if it's SMBs, that's fine. Whatever your market is, it is. I just, whenever somebody lists startups as a customer, I'm like, oh, that's a bummer, right? Because they just don't, like, of all the priorities startups have to figure out, printing is probably not in their top 5, and they don't have much money to spend on it anyway. So are you competing with, in the, like, the US market equivalent would be like Moo or Vistaprint? Is that kind of your thinking?
So Vistaprint owns printers and machines and manpower, and they have their cost. We don't. We are a platform powered by Canva. I did not mention that. So we partnered with Canva. Canva partnered with FedEx and Home Depot in the US, and we are the first partner in the MENA region. With their help, we will be offering the user's experience. They will go to our website, design, and we will fill the order.
So I think that's definitely a helpful component of your pitch. We're the first in the region to partner with Canva. But you have to give a little example there. Canva is a company that does blah blah blah, right? We're not in the business of owning printers. We're simply the platform that connects the business buyers with the printers, right, in that process. That'll help make that a little bit clearer. But other than that, good progress. Omar, you had a question before we go to VoiceMate.
Yeah, in my case, I'm the only founder here, and I will be using my team as a CEO of a web agency. So I don't know how this would be a good pitch. Or
yeah, I think the big thing is you just want the audience to know that I'm the solo founder, but I started an agency and we're currently using that agency to help deliver on some of those services. Would probably be the way I would pitch it.
Okay.
It gets back to the conversation we were having with Hussein there too, as far as, like, if you haven't made the jump to being full-time, which sounds like you've made that jump to being full-time, but just you want to basically declare the relationship so that people are, like, not surprised by it later. You don't have to explain it in detail, just more of a position. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Dave, I have a question. Yes, regarding Dana tracks. I'm thinking of putting a necklace on a slide and then say, this beautiful necklace would take 5 to 10 years to be made. And at Dana tracks, we want to cut that period to 3 months or 1 month. Or
you know, it's interesting. I actually think that value proposition is clearer for the audience to understand. So when you showed me the slides, I was like, oh, I thought you were going a different direction, right? And then the blockchain thing kind of confuses it because it's like, no, if it's really about the quality of the necklace and the matching pearls, it feels like a different story arc. So I think you'll have to play with that a little bit, because if you launch with that, then you can say, here's all the challenges in the supply chain. Inventory is completely distributed and not well managed. It comes from blah blah blah. Like it's a different story arc for sure. So, but I would test that one out. I have a feeling people will be like, oh, I get it, right? This is why that's hard. But let me go to VoiceMate because they were next on the queue.
Yeah, sure.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
So, hi everyone. My name is Salha. I'm the CEO of VoiceMate. So, VoiceMate is solving the communication gap between hearing impaired people. Okay, our product is a technical solution which interprets sign language into audio, which is empowered by machine learning and AI. We make money by providing application on a subscription model to individuals and giving interpretation services to enterprises. Our main target for launch is GCC, and then we'll expand worldwide. I have the best team, which consists of the best developers and a sign language expert. I would need help with financial funds and public relation teams.
Great. Much tighter pitch than yesterday. I understand what you're doing, for sure. I think the one thing I would note is that sign language is different in different. If people who don't know sign language, you're stating the obvious here, but sign language is different in different countries or in different regions, and our tools allow you to basically create like the Apple Translate button for sign language, right? Where people are like, oh, you can put that on my phone and I could get like because Apple Translate on the last build was like super cool and people were playing with it just to play with it. So so I'd probably land that a little bit in that direction, but that's probably the only feedback I'd give right now. It's moving the right way. Look forward to seeing the slide version for sure.
Great. Sorry, Dave, to cut you off. I didn't understand what you were trying to point out.
So the latest Apple release had the translate button where you could put the translate button, say something into it, and it would translate into whatever language you were trying to do it for.
Yes.
So I would say we're basically doing that for sign language.
Okay. So familiarize them with something they know and give them an example of it.
Yep. Because that way, because I may not understand sign language, but I do understand that button on my iPhone, right?
Great. Okay.
Great.
Thanks.
All right. There's no other cues in there. Anybody else left that wants to go? All right. Other questions, comments, thoughts, wrap up?
Dave, I have a...
Go on.
Go ahead. Let's.
No, please.
Thank you. Dave, as you know, our technology can be applied across different industries. And one thing we can move to is classic and vintage cars very easily. So do you think it would be helpful to mention this, or that doesn't add value?
I think are you guys experts in that? Are you experts in the pearl market?
We will find the experts. Yes, I'm already in touch with 2 experts.
So I think the question then becomes a question of